on standby. Everyone's like waiting for the curtain to open.
Gotta find my pose.
Purposefully not eating. I'm just going to go for it. And it looks like I'm the only person watching it. Oh, that's it.
Intro earlier when that it was online.
All right. That new sweet intro music. Keith, you want to go ahead and give us the proper intro?
That's bad timing.
What was that, teacher? What was that? I think it's supposed to be wah 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 wah.
Didn't you
Charlie
just think
Brown.
that when you were at school and the teacher said you can't eat or drink in class and then they're sitting there drinking tea or coffee and eating biscuits? The bastards.
Yep.
Hypocrites. Yeah, hello. Good morning, or good evening, or good middle of the night if you're Mitch. We are the Beerumverate. We are a group of guys from Sifted.net who like talking about good beer and video games. We are not here to promote drinking. Please drink responsibly. And please Christmas responsibly. Thanks Evan for bringing the Christmas. The only one of us who's got anything Christmas related. I've got some tinsel.
Yeah. What are you, Mitch now? You just have like the perfect thing sitting next to you. Like, oh yeah, this copy of Tomb Raider you guys are talking about.
It's totally
yeah,
random. If you can look at it, it's Christmas.
There's nothing Death Stranding related in this house. Yes.
Not in my house.
Yeah. Please like and subscribe. We'll get there eventually. And if you would like to be on the show, which thanks for Liam for coming on to talk about your top 5 games of the last decade, please message Matt at Berkough, myself at Keith_McWomble, or Mitch at MitchSequel on Twitter, or just at Mitch on Sifted.net, and we'll arrange to get people on. Right, there's no real rules, but we're just going to go through our top 5 games of the last decade plus an honourable mention. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I found it really difficult to get 5 nailed down.
Yeah.
1 and 2, straight away, easy. You know,
Right.
bang, get those nailed in, glued on, screwed to the wall. But 3 to 5, I really struggled with. So I don't know how you guys actually got on preparing your lists before we get into actually naming games.
Sorry, I'm going to do a quick short segue of Game Awards are this week. We did a show last week predicting our games of the Game Awards. So if you want to play the game with us, check out our last week's episode and see how our results and your results are, because we're going to be bragging about them next week. One of us is going to be bragging. Okay, now go back.
And not necessarily the person who has the most Death Stranding picks.
This is true.
This is true.
It won't be next week either, because I'm going to be out of town next week. Unless you guys are all going to do it without me and then gloat behind my back. Unless I'm the winner, and then in which case I think you'll...
We'll just lie to you.
Yeah, we just aren't going to acknowledge if you won. We're just going to be like, he never won. What are you talking about?
Yeah, we know you don't watch the show if you're not on it yourself, so we'll just...
Yeah, he's just...
Yeah.
The video's doctrined. He doctrined it when he put it on there. So, you know, he changed it the day after the awards to make sure he won.
I would. But then you can track the history of the Google Doc, can't you? So if Matt suddenly goes in and changes all the colours and picks around.
Well, I
be
made
able
a
to go back to
copy.
the-
I made a copy that day, so we have a separate copy of it that's shared with everybody.
Right, who's drinking beers? Since no one actually wanted to answer my question. about how hard they found it to put the list together?
Oh no, it
wasn't
was really hard.
difficult.
Yeah, it was extremely difficult.
Oh wow, I feel like I'm the opposite. It was easy peasy. Like there's so many games of the decade, but there's only certain games that I feel like deserve on the list. So as I saw games of the games from this past decade, it was really easy to go. That needs to go there. That needs to go there. That needs to go there.
See, this is where I found it a bit challenging. If it had been a top 10, that would have been pretty easy. But getting down that final 5.
Yeah,
I think picking number 5 was hard because mine's number 5 I would have given to a different game, but I think you all understand why I would never put it in that top 5. I would have given it 10. So it's just not going to make my list. You're all going to go, you're crazy, but you understand.
We think that already.
Yeah, you're not losing anything, just keeping it level.
Right, who's got beers?
I think just myself and Evan, right?
Right, do you want to introduce them?
And I apologize. I'm getting a catch of the illness. And so 2:00 in the morning commitment with illness doesn't equal a very nice voice. Very raspy.
You still sound better than me.
So I have Gatorade.
I'll go first. I've got Samuel Adams Winter Lager. This is probably the biggest sort of craft brew in the States. It's not bad.
Yes, it is.
It says it's a festive bock with spices. It's
I did that the other day. I saw a what was it, Cornish seasonal ale, and I didn't read the back. And it said imbued with winter spices. And so I took one sip and it tasted like mulled beer and chucked that shit down the sink.
it's actually not too bad. It's way more bitter than I would expect a lager to be. But
Is that good or bad, do you think?
maybe not so bad in this case because it does kind of cover up whatever the fuck winter spices they put in here were.
Right. Whatever the fuck. I like your glass game.
Yeah, so I've had
Proper glass?
Yeah, I've had some proper Sam Adams glasses for a while. Color's decent, clarity's good. Head retention's pretty bad, but it's nice and fizzy. It'll be a decent beer for this evening.
I'll be back in 2 seconds. Actually, I have something really cool to show you guys with beer. So hold on.
All right.
But
All right.
you can go, Evan.
I guess I'll go. I'm drinking same brewery as last time. I think I said last time I ordered a big box from Yahoo Brewing.
Right.
They kind of give you a selection of seasonal beers and some of their go-to beers that you can find in the convenience store. This is Yona Yona Ale.
I love the fucking names with Japanese beers, dude.
Yeah, it is. It's a pale ale. It's kind of a classic pale ale. It's 5.5%. We got kind of a. I would say that's a golden brown. It looks slightly different on the camera, but yeah, head retention not so great. But it's good. It's again, they make really drinkable beers, so like a session pale ale almost. It's not too heavy, but yeah, it's a nice beer if you want something that has that nice crisp bitter pale ale flavor, but it doesn't feel too heavy after 2 or 3.
Pretty strong for a session beer. Normally session beers hover around 3.5 and 4.
Yeah.
Right. I know that English beer tends to be on the lower end, but no, you're right.
Don't put down our brewing industry. How dare you?
No, I quite enjoyed it. What I meant was a lot of it's a session beer in the sense of yes, 5.5% is quite high, but it feels like you could just throw a bunch back because it's not too heavy and you don't get that IPA hot head. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, this one's a 5.6, so I understand what you're saying.
That's good.
Right, Mitch, what did you go and fetch?
Yes. So we talked about a couple months ago. I ended up going to Denver, Colorado, and then I visited the brewery at Coors. And thing I forgot to show was they give you a cool cup at the end of their tour in golden. And the cool part of it is it's shaped like a beer mug, a beer
Oh
cup.
yeah.
I mean, a beer can.
That's pretty cool.
And so it's really the coolest part is like the lip of it is literally like the can of the beer, which is so cool. So
That is kind of cool. Yeah.
So I was like, oh, it's right here on the counter because I got to go give this to my mom to save for later.
Nice.
So,
all right.
I just want to point out that the one time I do bring in a beer to drink, that podcast gets completely fucked up. So
Oh,
I did
that's
do
what
it there
again.
unofficially.
Oh, Liam, you were on the original game of the Game Awards.
Yes.
I was, yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
you
have
know,
to make one pick.
Damn.
I'm the reason you're at a slight disadvantage.
Oh well, we'll see what happens. If Baba is you wins, I'll feel good about that pick. That's about it.
I've just realised
I hadn't even heard of it until it was nominated.
I'm looking at myself in the YouTube stream, and because I've got the pale background behind me, the my headphones are showing through, so it looks like I've got the city in my headphones.
Yeah.
It's not you. It's not you. It's the software Berkough's using because I had a hat on and it was see through.
Yeah, so I had to have Liam turn up the brightness on his camera as well. That's why I was asking if you could turn up the brightness on your camera. But your face shows fine, so...
Well.
You know, Berkough did this on purpose. He's like, I have white headphones, so I don't give a shit about any of you idiots with your black headphones. And yeah.
Just trying to, up the OBS game, make it, much better on the stream and do some special things, and it's just not quite working out, but we'll get the technical difficulties ironed out eventually.
Yeah, give us 7 years.
I think, Mitch, from now on, even when you move and you set up and everything, you should just hold your mic. I like the look. This looks good. I like it. That's a nice mic. I hear not a single sound out of that except for your voice.
Yeah, I mean, I did pay a boatload of money for this mic.
Okay.
It's a USB mic, but it's a really high quality one. It's a Rode.
That's an endorsement right there. Just like,
Yeah,
I can't hear a single thing. It's really nice.
I might be. I'm gonna try to see if I can. Yeah, but it's really really good. I recommend it. So, McWomble.
Do we want to get through some honourable mentions?
Yes.
The games that have missed out.
Yes.
Do we? I'm just curious. I forgot to ask this about the pre-show. Do you maybe want to save the honorary mentions until we give our games list in case some people actually have this game on their list?
That's just down to people to not give it away. Yes, you need to be stony faced. What we could do, save the honourable mentions before our top pick.
Okay.
That's
That's doable.
Yeah.
That's fair. I just think
Okay.
it's going to easily give it away, and I don't want to do that.
In which order do we want to go around? Do we want to go YouTube order? So Matt will go first, then Liam, then Evan, then Mitch, and myself.
Sure.
Yeah, we can do that.
Saving the best for last.
Well, I'm usually after the last two times where we were picking games, and I ended up coming last in both of those. I just put myself at the bottom of the list. Right, Matt.
All right.
What's your number 5 game of the last decade?
My number 5 game of the last decade is probably going to be the most outrageous pick for myself.
It can't probably be.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. You cannot say probably.
Well, I'm saying probably based on how everyone here is going to react.
Okay.
My number 5 pick is Uncharted 4: A Thief's End.
Fair.
See?
That's a good game. I never think that you'd like the Uncharted games that much, or even have it on your list.
I hated the first 3. Like, I cannot get through those games. But number 4, I feel like they ironed out every issue, most all issues with that series. And I mean, I picked it up, and it was one of those games where I was playing it on a Saturday night, and my wife fell asleep on the couch next to me, and the next thing I know, it's 4 a.m. and I'm at the end of the game, and that has not happened to me in years.
Evan, he mustn't have been playing it on hard.
I would say.
So
for
you basically you didn't even, if you didn't play it on hard, you didn't play the game, in my opinion.
Normal, but yeah.
I would say Uncharted 4 is. I can understand why it's on your list, and I don't question. Actually, it's not as crazy as I thought you were gonna go. So, but I think for that game, it has the best gameplay of all the games in the series. The story just may not be as good as some of the other past entries in the series.
Yeah, it's got the best sections of Nathan Drake doing an impression of a spider monkey in any of those games. I mean, the way he clings onto those ledges. Oh.
Well, and also the way he smacks somebody and somehow the gun magically jumps into the air and it can land right where he can just go.
Come on, man! It's action movie. The game, you gotta have all those great scenes. Yeah,
and I love the open worldness that they have with the open environments. That it's like multi-layered. It's not like just a giant space. It's also sometimes multi-leveled. Like there's high places, low places, and you really have to strategize more in this one. So, no, I think it's the best gameplay of the series for sure.
How many people here has played The Lost Legacy?
Yeah, I prefer The Lost Legacy because.
Yeah, I prefer The Lost Legacy as well. I thought that was.
It's really good.
No, not mine.
I'm really interested to see what they do with The Last of Us 2, Part 2, where are they going to fit this kind of that style of like Chapter 4 is in an open kind of open area where you can choose what to do first, and then they move back on after that chapter into more linear.
Save that thought for another episode.
Okay.
Right, so
I will say the last thing
is Matt's wrong.
I see.
We're just agreeing that Matt's pick is wrong. Good. Okay.
Sorry, Matt.
You had one last thing to say.
One thing I like about Uncharted games is they do a really good job of keeping you engaged even when you're doing like really menial things, because the dialogue is so good. And it's, well, look at the party when you're in the Tux party and you're in the basement with your brother and you're just like moving like giant like kegs of wine around to try to just move, and all you're doing is just getting through a bit of exposition with that part. And a lot of other games that part would fail, but in this game it just
in a recent game that's the only thing that you do is carry stuff around, and people are saying that that's the greatest game of all time.
I really hope that's not on anybody's list. Just saying.
You should have seen.
Oh, sorry. Wow, that took me a long time to get.
He likes this game. All right, Liam.
Yeah, Liam, what's your number 5?
I could have gone back and forth with 5 and 4. Grand Theft Auto 5.
Okay.
All right.
I love that game. I think it's Rockstar's best game. I could replay that game tons of times. I mean, I've heard loads of people having problems with the protagonists and the way the story goes and how it's a little bit.
That's me. I think Grand Theft Auto 5 is not the best one in the series.
I love the game. I just love the excuse to play as a freaking maniac. Like in those games, it's like Trevor gives you the excuse to be the maniac that you want to be, but you're slightly inhibited by the fact that you're doing terrible things. You know, I'm just playing a crazy Canadian person, so it's fine, right?
Is he Canadian?
Yeah, he's Canadian.
Oh, I did not know
that.
He
hates it being brought up. That's another fun thing.
Yeah, I did enjoy Grand Theft Auto 5. I did not like playing as either Trevor or Michael. I think Franklin is the only redeemable character out of the three of those people.
I mean, it's like Goodfellas, you know? It's like none of the characters are...
You don't have to like them. Yeah, they're all...
I enjoy being around them and interacting with them, but I mean, other than Franklin, they're terrible people. You know, Franklin is like the only one that still has any form of purity left.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, I feel like it misses out on some of the RPG elements of San Andreas, but By the same token, it is the most refined experience, and by having the 3 characters, it's a nice compromise of not having those RPG elements that San Andreas had.
What I can't get over in that series though is the monotonous tasks it sends you on constantly. Like you are driving. Literally, this game is driver simulator central. Like you are just driving to a destination, and then you are doing combat that is not really that refined and not really that good. This is why Sleeping Dogs for me is even better than Grand Theft Auto 5, because at least the combat in Sleeping Dogs is at least interesting, fun, and creative, to the point where it makes the monotonous task of driving to destination really fun. Where here in Grand Theft Auto 5, the gameplay itself, it's an amazing sandbox game. Like it's if that game didn't have a story and it just said, hey, live in this world, be in this world, and pushed that narrative more, I think that franchise would be for the better, rather than trying to give themselves a narrative plot story using very tokenism type plot points and characters, and it just comes off disingenuous, and
also,
the rest of the play just does not work.
And some of the social commentary elements, I agree with what Mitch is saying, so put that in your calendar. Some of the social commentary isn't as clever as they think it is.
I could definitely agree with that.
They think they're being really smart, and obviously everyone sat at Rockstar was going, ha, 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 I am a comedian, I am killing me. And then they actually put the game out, and I played it and thought, yeah, this is far too on the nose.
I couldn't even get through it. That's how bad I was. I got through Grand Theft Auto 4. I enjoyed Grand Theft Auto 4, but I could not get through this one.
Actually, I will say I never beat Grand Theft Auto 3 or 4, but I did beat 5, and I sure played a hell of a lot of golf in GTA 5. I will say that about that. The golf in that game is amazing. It is so good. I've had so many drunken nights playing golf in GTA 5.
And like I said, building off those day in the life style type things, I think that's where its bread and butter is. And I love that in that game, it lets you hop between the 3 characters. If you could do that with like 10 characters in the world, and it's just a sandbox, and your story progresses where, hey, if you haven't played the game for like a month, you have to go get a haircut go get yourself a haircut, like a day in the life. That's the way to sell Grand Theft Auto.
Basically, what we're saying with Liam's wrong. So Matt's been wrong, Liam's wrong.
I want to come back at you slightly, Mitch, on some of your criticisms of Grand Theft Auto 5, because a lot of the problems I had with Grand Theft Auto 4, which I think is a extremely monotonous game, it takes a long time to start. In fact, it takes a long time before you even get a gun in that game. You know, there's so many pointless tasks, going on pointless dates, taking the stupid cousin bowling. Like,
yeah. And for the record, I'll totally let you finish your vote, but for the record, like I say that I enjoyed Grand Theft Auto more than 5, but that's still not saying very much for saying I enjoy Grand Theft Auto 4. Like I still have my same issues with Grand Theft Auto 4 than I did of 5. I just like the characters of 4 more.
Well, I think the other thing with 5 though is it's very different in terms of design than 4. You know, you're not just being sent to one place and having a shootout and going back or things like that. It just keeps on putting you in like wacky and crazy situations that you don't expect. I mean, the mission could start one way entirely, and then it could be completely different by the end of it. I mean, I think there was one mission where you like go to steal like some cocaine or something, and then the mission ends with you jumping out of an airplane before it crashes. It's like I don't know how I got from point A to B, but it was enjoyable as hell.
I think the most interesting element of that game for me was the heists, and it's also the bit that's got the least content.
It would be if it was heist the game, like that would be so cool.
The heists are really, really cool. I love setting those things up and then watching your decisions play out as it goes on, and it makes or breaks what you're doing. I do, like Liam. I think that actually does set the game apart from other entries in the GTA series. Is the heist. I wish they had more of them, to be honest, because the one where you get a submarine that's a good one. I love the setup to that when you're working towards getting to the day of the heist, and then you just see it all play out. It's just It's really satisfying.
One last thing before I'm done on this point exactly. With your points about the change in from something going to do something and then something completely changes into something different. I think there is a game that does it, a different game that does it so much better that it would never make my top 10 list, but the other game would because it does it better.
What is it?
We'll get to the honorable mentions.
Oh,
okay.
It would have been my number 10. And I really didn't want to put it anywhere on there, but I feel like I must put it on the 10.
Right, who's next?
This is Evan Piotrowski.
Yeah.
All right, this number 5 has been a difficult one for me. I've been switching out 2 games. I guess I'll put the other one in the honorable mentions, but I'm not gonna cheat, but I'm just gonna say on any given day I might switch out this game for that other game. But it's gonna stay where it is. My number 5 is Super Meat Boy.
Okay.
Interesting.
Which was released in 2010. I remember I lived in Chicago at the. It was kind of everything that was going on at the time as well.
You've talked about this on Podcast Reload as well.
Yeah.
I think I did. We did couch co-op stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was living in Chicago. Finally, I lived away from home in Minneapolis for quite a while, and then moved to Chicago, and my brother happened to live there as well. And I hadn't seen them because we both went away to university around the same time. He had a Xbox 360. I had like a PlayStation 2 until 2012. So we downloaded Super Meat Boy, and like every weekend that we had time, we would stop playing it he'd stop playing it during the week, and I'd go to his house on Saturday and Sunday. Would just sit there and play Super Meat Boy all the time. It is like probably the best 2D platformer, I guess, in the decade, really. Like I can't think of a game that has as perfect of controls, which is completely necessary for how difficult that game gets. And it is definitely one of those games where when you die, you can't get mad at the game because you know it's your fault, and that's because the controls are so good.
So what you're saying is it would be a perfect game for Google Stadia.
Oh man. Oh,
if it can run
like butter. Yeah. Funnily enough, we ended up probably we got through all like the side levels. I forgot what they call them. It's like the alternate world, but I never beat it. We got to the final boss, and I think I ended up moving, and I have actually never gone back to it. But it's like, I don't know. The music is amazing.
I would say
it's just
Bit Trip Runner 2. It's probably
Bit Trip Runner 2.
Yeah, Bit Trip presents Runner 2, Future Legend of Rhythm Alien.
Are you saying perfect controllers?
Well, just in terms of a 2D platformer, I think they're on the same level.
I see what you're saying. I might put that in a slightly different genre because you
don't actually push forward.
It's an auto runner, yeah.
Okay.
Those controls are amazing. You know how much I love that game.
Right.
But I mean, when Super Meat Boy came out, it was an indie the movie, whatever, indie game the movie or whatever.
Yeah.
But like everyone was just hailing this game, and I think rightfully so. And I don't think it's one of those games where people look back on it 10 years later and say like, oh well, it doesn't. You take it down a couple notches. Like it still looks great, it sounds great, although they couldn't get the rights to the original music when they released it on PS4, so that definitely hurts the PS4 version of it. But it's amazing. Like it's one of those games where you're like, oh, okay, I get how this game is, like the general conceit of it.
Right.
And then there's 300 levels in that game, and then it's like Celeste. Celeste does the same thing where it adds something new each world. I'm like, oh, okay, didn't see this coming, but it's essentially still platforming, but like some of the stuff that they keep adding and they keep building on it to keep you interested and put new obstacles in your way. And I mean, you don't get sick of a platformer after 300 levels. That definitely says something about it, looking for the next challenge. And yeah, right. I love it. It's a great game.
I guess my only question for everybody, because I think I should have asked this in the beginning, when you were picking your top 5 list, was it your personal preference of your top favorite games of the decade in the last 5 years?
Yes.
or is it your
It's
most
my favorite,
influential
yeah.
games in the last
It-
5 years that may not be your like you enjoyed them, but the impact they made was significant to the decade?
No, I just went personal
No.
favorites.
Yep.
Well,
That is a good question, but
I totally agree with Evan. Like, the Super Meat Boy is a perfect game. I mean, it is. But every single game on my list is imperfect in some way. I think it's just what I enjoyed or took the most out of. I think
I'm just,
All right,
I'm
because
just
I have
waiting
loads of
for.
games that are perfect that probably aren't anywhere near to my top 10.
All right, Matt. Matt? I didn't hear your answer.
Yeah, these are my personal. So I basically went through the decade year by year. I picked out a handful of games from each of the genres that I personally really like. And that's how I compiled up my list.
Okay.
but yeah, actually going back to what Liam said as well, yeah, definitely the same for me. It has nothing to do with like the impact on the gaming industry or anything like that. But or actually to what we're just talking about now, I think one of the reasons why Super Meat Boy is on my list is because of the having like I have a great memories of playing with my brother. So much so that it came out on PlayStation Plus for free years ago. Not only was the music different, so that kind of turned me off, but when I started playing it, I did not feel right doing it by playing it by myself. So like
Yeah.
I kind of so it definitely was like it's just personal preference. Like I had a great time playing that with my brother
To Mitch's
back
point,
in
though,
2010.
I would say Super Meat Boy is one of those industry-defining games because it was one
It's
of the
both, yeah.
first indie games that like was like a breakout hit. And I've got maybe a couple of those on my honorable mentions. So
Okay.
I think my number 5 pick will do both. So it's
Mine as
effective-
well.
it affected
So
the
Evan and I
industry
were on the
also.
same boat here.
Okay. That's cool.
And
And then
except-
just
Except not game. It's not my game.
That's
Okay.
a very neat way to introduce Mitch and his first pick. So Mitch, what's your number 5 game of the decade?
So my number 5, and so how I approached it completely different than you all. Well, I enjoyed these games. Each of these games, I think, made a significant impact on the decade, but I did pick either. There's only one of them that I think there's a game that's better than it, but because it set up the Trailblaze, I had to give it its props. So, but it's not my number 5. My number 5 pick is Journey.
Journey. All right.
So
Yeah.
for the similar reason you just said, Matt, I think Journey was one of the breakout hits in the indie zone. And not only did it do that, I think it allowed for creativity to show that creativity can really shine in the indie area. It was probably one of the most unique games out there. Like Super Meat Boy is a great game. Don't get me wrong. But some of its mechanics are very, very similar to some other games that are out there, basic mechanic wise, which
Yeah, it's a platformer,
which is
yeah.
fine. That's good. I mean, they do innovate in other ways, but Journey is just its own other thing. Like you just can't pick another game like it, and it's just because of the creative. It's visually amazing to view, and it really was showing that you can tell games in a totally different way.
It also got a lot of independent artistic respect for its
Yes.
design. So much so that, Matt, do you remember when I went to the Victoria and Albert Museum, we talked about the video games as art exhibition?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that Journey was one of the games that was there,
Oh.
representing this medium is artistic and is due respect by the art.
Yeah, so
deservedly so as well.
yeah, absolutely.
sure.
So
Yeah.
I just think it set up the Trailblaze in that regard.
It's
That was a great episode. It's the craft review.
yes, which is one of the videos. If you subscribe to my channel, then that's the video you see pop up on the main screen. So Journey for me is a beautiful game, and it does some interesting things with I guess what I would call asymmetrical multiplayer. Maybe other people don't see it that same way, but I still think it's a walking simulator and it's at its core, it's still just the hero's journey, right? So even though it does some creative things, it's the story itself is not all that interesting, I guess.
Oh,
I
really?
Well, a lot of that story is up to interpretation because it's not a set stone story.
Yeah, I disagree. I think the story is super interesting because of how vague they leave. They leave it up to you to decide, but they kind of paint the story from start to finish, the what happened. But because you're just kind of getting the story from tapestries, there's a lot in between that you have to fill in your mind. But like it's funny because like you could probably get through that game without even knowing what the hell the background of the story is about, because you have to search for those tapestries,
Right.
kind of go out of your way to find them. But I loved like looking at it and kind of piece together just based on these pictures, like what happened. I see what you're saying, that Matt, like there's no conversation, there's no world building in that sense.
Yeah.
Which is like, I mean, that's like some of the best stories, that's where that comes from. But I think maybe someone might argue like that
because it's left
it lacking a bit.
Because it's left to interpretation, it's actually better in that regard because
I'm completely satisfied with what they gave you. I think there's enough there to you're like, okay, this is what I think happened. And I liked trying to find those tapestries to piece the story together by myself. It was an extra carrot on the end of the stick aside from the journey itself.
Right, so we've agreed that Matt's wrong, Liam's wrong, Evan's right, and Mitch is right so far.
Yeah, should we keep a tally on like how wrong or right we are?
I mean, I would say I side more with Matt on Journey.
Well, it's 3-2 then. So
fair
it's
enough.
only because they don't have it's not sandbox with a weapon. I'm just kidding. No, I'm just messing with you.
I thought Journey was somewhat beautiful in its simplicity in a lot of ways, and I thought all of the extra added texture that you can sort of look into in the game, I don't know, sort of did it a disservice in a strange sort of way, because I think in its simplest form it doesn't really need to be anything. It's quite beautiful just being an endless sort of quest, but
sure,
I thought the extra layers that were added to the whole thing sort of made it less unique in a way. I don't know. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I had some
decent argument to make.
I had some really interesting moments in the game. Like I remember the first time, because I played through it probably 3 or 4 times total, because it's so short. It lends itself to that, right?
It's very relaxing as well.
Yeah, and especially with running into random other players in the world. I remember the first time that I ran into somebody that had the white cloak, like they had got all the ribbon pieces.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy shit, how do you do that? You know, and piecing it together in my mind, like, oh, every time you get one of those things, that adds to your scarf or your cloak or whatever you want to call it. And then you finally get to that. If you collect all of them, you get to the white outfit, you know. And that was cool. So, I mean, it's not just a walking simulator. Like, it does have some puzzle elements to it, and I enjoyed those.
I will say, absolutely criminal that game does not have a platinum trophy. Criminal.
Oh, yeah.
You know how hard it is to find someone to generally play with you through the entire thing? It's one of the trophies in that thing.
I've been trying to get you guys to play the Capcom fucking beat 'em up collection.
Hey, I played it this morning, and all I could think about is how you fucking weaseled me out of $11, and there's no fucking platinum trophy behind it. You lied to me.
All right, so
we do need to get on that. By the way, I would love to play with that game with you guys.
McWomble, you're number 5, Kansa.
Right, bear with me 1 second. Because this game.
You okay there, Evan?
Sorry, I liked your weird like Southern Belle accent just dropped in for that to push this podcast along. It was good.
And come on, add the bloody image, you bastard.
Kojima game is it gonna be?
And it is.
Stranding of Stranding.
It won't open the image. I'm trying to do a virtual background and it won't
Mitch,
open.
it's Strandfall.
Strandfall.
Strandfall. Yes, it is 007 Strandfall.
Prepare for
That totally sounds like the name of a game, by the way.
I know.
Full
It totally sounds like
Stranding.
a 007 movie.
Strandfall.
Right, so my pick, because I can't get the virtual backgrounds to work for some reason, is not only one of my favourite games, it also led to the downfall of a studio, and that's The Walking Dead Season 1.
Oh, it's a good game.
All right.
That was my game of the year that came out. The story was so good.
It's so interesting that you it's just Mitch's pick was Journey, and now your pick is The Walking Dead, and it's sort of like just having flashbacks to 2012 when people were having arguments over which was better.
So yeah, the storytelling in that game was absolutely superb. Okay, the gameplay wasn't great, but I genuinely believe that how much that gripped me, and the success of that led to the explosion of Telltale's domination of, or huge overexpansion of licensed IP, to the point that they overextended themselves so much and had to shut themselves down.
Yeah, it's a sad one.
The voice acting in that game was brilliant. The way that they built the tension across the episodes, and depending on your choices, who lived and who died, I thought that was not anything particularly new, but the way that they presented it was in a new and refreshing way. And it actually got me to like The Walking Dead, because the TV show is garbage. But I actually liked playing that game.
I played that game on my iPhone
with me, so this is good. So we can move on.
No, it is a great game. Like I feel bad. I played it on my iPhone back when I had games on my phone. But I remember just sitting on my sofa, like wow, I did not expect to like this at all. And it's so intriguing, and it is one of those games where it's uncomfortable to play at times, and it's a struggle because you want to make sure you want to do. I like, there's some parallels to real life, even though it is a video game at the end of the day. Like, you want to do the right thing and you want to be the hero and please everyone, but it's one of those games where you have to make decisions and people end up not liking you, or people die, and it's kind of putting the point across, like you would get into these situations in life and death, and you'd make a mistake or say the wrong thing, and people's lives are at stake with that type of thing. And I just, from start to finish, I was really, really attached to that game, and it was definitely one of my favorite of that year for sure.
I couldn't get past the first episode, but I have an aversion to games with zombies, so
I get it. I get that.
Right.
I'm telling you, vampires have had their day. Zombies have had their day. We're going back to werewolves. I want to see werewolves. Order 1887 werewolves. I want to see that game. Bring back the Order 1886. That was a good game.
Preach.
Can we have dinosaurs as well? Then I will fully agree with you.
Dino Crisis.
Yeah, dinosaurs and werewolves.
Dino Crisis 3.
Yeah.
Let's make it happen.
There is actually already a Dino Crisis 3. You're looking for 4, sir.
All right, 4.
3 was in space. It wasn't very good.
We're going to be here for 3 hours otherwise.
Yeah.
Matt, I'm not leaving. I just need to go and get the power adapter for my laptop. So Matt, what is your number 4 pick?
My number 4 pick is the Talos Principle. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody here. If you've talked to me about games, that's one of my all-time favorite games. Solid story. The way that the story is delivered is incredible. Solid puzzle game. The puzzles ramp up, and it has a perfect difficulty curve. Yeah, love that game. Crow Team did. Go ahead.
So you were saying like this about the story. That's one thing about the game I haven't really heard a lot about. I've heard a lot about how the puzzles are just like really, really intriguing and they just really, really like it's again, it's like the thinking man's game. You think a puzzle game would want you to think, right? It's kind of a
Evan,
stupid thing to
you
say.
don't need the story because it asks you to read it rather than it tell you. So you'd hate that game.
I was gonna
Hey,
get
you're
into
not on
that.
screen. You're not allowed to talk.
I was gonna
It's a
go
ghost.
into that. Yeah, no,
Um,
it's actually a surprisingly text heavy game.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Okay,
so
I didn't know that.
there's terminals littered all throughout the environments.
Oh man, Berkough gets to read stuff in like essentially a menu screen.
Yep.
Fucking just love eating it up.
But-
Christmas dinner.
On top of that, you're also interacting with an AI. So you log into these terminals. There's an AI, which is the library assistant, the Milton library assistant, and he or she talks to you about your interaction with the system, and it asks you questions about the nature of existence and who you are and what you think that your role is in this world and why you're doing these puzzles and all that kind of stuff. And then beyond that, there's like fragments of emails that have gone back and forth between different people, and there's different like text files from different books and things that people inside the lore of the world have read or saved to their computers, and you're able to sort of find this data. There are audio logs that you run across that you have to find in the world. They're not just given to you. So it's a bit like BioShock with the phonograph records that you run across.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has anyone played the Talos Principle? I've heard great things about it. I know like Ian Hink from Easy Allies has championed that game for quite a while, but I haven't played it myself.
Nope. I'm so sorry. I have nothing to say.
I had sort of written it off as a
Walking
a
simulator.
clone of The Witness. You know?
Oh
So,
no, this was
if I
way
could-
before The Witness.
Oh really? Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Well, I really enjoyed The Witness. I could not beat it, sadly. But like, thank you for putting that on my radar.
You don't have to play it, Liam. You could just watch Matt's streams of
Oh.
it.
I like games like that, so I might go back and just see if it's on a deal or something at some point.
I would highly
Right.
recommend it. Yeah.
I need to go back to The Witness. I was playing that game because it was on PS Plus. I'm like, I don't know where the fuck to go, man. Like, I don't know. This puzzle is over my head. I haven't learned how to do that. Like, I'm walking so slowly. But
How do you
super intriguing.
go back to a game like
Yeah,
that?
The Witness is not a game you can go back to. That's
Alright,
like
well, then
that's
I'm
like
gonna
totally
asking
go
you
back to
to do calculus in high school and then asking it to do calculus like 40 years later. Like you just don't know your shit.
You know
Totally
what
go
game you
back
can
to
go
it.
back to? Shut up, everyone. You know what game you can go back to? Liam's number 4 pick.
That's what I was gonna start
Um,
segueing.
That
Go.
is true. I'm sure. This is one of the picks I was worried about, but everybody's going to shout at me for. I don't know. Horizon Zero Dawn is my number 4.
It's a great game.
I don't disagree with you at all. That was very close. That would have been number 6 for me.
I don't disagree of that's a good game. I just don't know if it's top 5 quality. But you can tell me why.
It's definitely in my top 5. I think I got something out of it that I don't get out of many games. I was into the story like a lot more than any other game. Just the way it slowly unveiled itself as you go along. And it's not like all of the content in between the story moments isn't good, because I think the game's highly addicting and enjoyable to play. But just the way the story unveils itself as you go through it, like, kept me like super, like more interested in it than it's like watching a TV show, on box set, and then getting closer to the season finale and becoming more and more intrigued as to what's going to happen. I thought that game, the further you got in, the more sort of intimately into the story it would be.
Another
Like,
good
you
thing that they
want to know why the world is the way it is, and what the purpose of the main character is.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Liam. And the good thing that game did is I'm normally pretty good at guessing what the ending is,
Oh yeah.
and I guessed wrong 3 times.
Mm.
So I thought it was going to go one way, And no, and then after that story beat happens. Right, well, it's got to be that then, isn't it? No, it's not that either. So I think that they did a really good job of the writing in that game to keep you interested and keep you wanting to uncover what happened in the world. Evan, haven't you got a platinum trophy for Horizon Zero Dawn?
Oh, not only did I get the platinum trophy, I 100%ed the DLC. Who do you think I am, Johnny Bananas? Come on. Oh, it's a great game. Yeah, it's. I love a good mystery. That I'm gonna say the carrot on the stick for like the 18th fucking time, but it is a great carrot on the stick to where not only is the gameplay great, you really want to find out what the hell has happened, and they just do a great job of like Hansel and Greteling. That's a verb, by the way. Your way through that and giving you you should see the lesson I got planned for tomorrow. It's gonna blow these kids' minds.
It's video log breadcrumbs.
Yeah, and a lot
audio
of that
logs.
hangs...
I'm sorry, audio logs, not video logs.
There you go. Yeah. It is the breadcrumbs, and it's super satisfying once you find out what happened. Like, I thought it was great. It's not one of those. It's not a letdown at all. And once that ends, it's like, all right, I want to stay in this world, and how many trophies do I have left? All right, yeah, I'll give it a shot, and just like taking down the different enemies is kind of like a puzzle. That part's great. Yeah, it's that combat is really, really good.
The game is really, really good, and I think what really makes that game stand out from a lot of other games out there, and I still argue to the bone that this game got nubbed from Breath of the Wild, because I don't think Breath of the Wild was that good compared to something like Horizon, where it's just quality is over the top and has purpose. But I think the thing that really made it stand out more than anything else is the quality of its enemies, and how the enemies themselves are their own puzzle, and you create your own strategy, and it's not one of those one size fits all type things. And as they mix and match enemy types, it becomes a lot more complicated and a lot more interesting in that aspect. I always will remember my favorite thing would be I saw two creatures going at it when I was walking in the woods. And all of a sudden,
what do you mean by that?
Oh, like two alligators were trying to beat each other up.
Okay.
Oh, God. Okay. Okay, Evan.
Well, I'm just saying. Clear it up for the audience.
You platinumed it. You would have known if they could do that.
I mean, apparently Evan's thinking about the Bloodhound Gang.
But anyways, they were fighting it out on each other, and one ended up getting pushed on top of me, and then all of a sudden they both started to attack me instead. And it's just one of those moments I would never forget, because it's the actual world interacting with each other that ends up impacting me, the player, and it actually sells the realism of these creatures and I don't know if we can call them creatures. They're robots. These robots in this world, it just sells it so well, and nothing like it.
Exactly. The best thing about that game as well is that the engine was good enough for His Royal Highness Hideo Kojima.
You had to fit it in. You had to fit it in somewhere. Yeah, might as well do it right there.
Moving on. Evan.
Number 4.
The fourth best game of the decade is 2012's Hotline Miami.
Interesting.
Did you have to do that twisting the moustache?
Yeah, my beard is out of control.
I'm really surprised how many indie pictures you've already got.
I mean, I'm on 2. Well, we'll see what happens with the rest of my list. But I love Hotline Miami. It's so good. Like, it is. I don't know what you want. Like, I don't know if most of that music was made strictly for the game, or it was just taken from, like, because it's a bunch of artists, right, thrown into this kind of like this tech synth chill wave soundtrack. But it's probably the best video game soundtrack that I've ever heard, aside from Katamari Damacy, which might be the best video game soundtrack ever. And it is the only 2 soundtracks you are allowed to listen to outside of actually playing the game. If you listen to fucking video game music while not playing the game, you are a huge fucking nerd. And you need to stop doing that and start listening to regular. I'm just.
Who would do that? Like nobody would listen to Death Stranding music outside the game.
I mean, like if it's it's essentially just like an artist, then you're good. But amazing soundtrack. I still listen to it. It's one of the Moon. Some of those two tracks are just you could put them on replay. But like top down Twitch shooter, similar to Super Meat Boy, and the fact that insanely challenging levels, but the second you die, you automatically respawn, and it just cutting that down to a second just gives you that drive to keep trying to clear these levels. It's like Massacre, music, Mafia. It's an amazing game. There's nothing quite like it either.
The subtitle, Hotline Miami Massacre Music Mafia.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, the Triple M. I mean, there's a couple games like Mr. Sticky Fingers, Mr. Switch It. There's some game, and then Ape Out. They tried to emulate that, but nothing gets close to me. It's just, I'll never forget that. And then again, when my brother came to visit me in Japan, this is actually a story about my family and how I miss them. I'm just kidding. But when he came to Japan, he had never even heard of Hotline Miami. And we were having a conversation. I'm like, oh, that's like Hotline Miami. He's like, what is that? I was like, all right, we're probably supposed to like go out. I'm supposed to show you Japan right now and go out to Kyoto and see all these temples and stuff, but we're going to sit on this couch and you're going to play Hotline Miami. And he fucking loved it. And he went back home and he told all his friends about it. And then they bought it. And the virus is slowly spreading throughout Wisconsin.
So are you saying, do you need to do a disclosure right now?
Yeah.
That you are paid by Hotline Miami?
I am directly paid by Mr. Hotline Miami. Yeah.
My review copy was provided by Hotline Miami.
Yep. I hope they do. 2 is good. I hope they do a 3, but yeah, I'll never forget that game. Did anyone else play it?
No.
So moving on then, because no one else has played it.
I played it. I just agree with everything he said.
Well,
thank you, Liam. Oh, I almost had a heart attack at 34 years old. Thank you for saving my life.
You need to speak up more quickly. You've been on this show before.
I'm sorry, I give other people a chance first. It's not all about me.
I have to stop doing long intros to my picks, but Liam, could you say a few words about this game to make you feel better?
I can. I think the fact that it's so freaking snappy that every time you die, you're just straight back in there. Like it's like I was recently playing Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. The loading times in that game are freaking atrocious. Atrocious. Like the fact it takes so long for you to just reload makes the time between when you're waiting on a loading screen just makes your frustration with the game become like so much worse. And it's like games like Super Meat Boy or Hotline Miami, the way they snap back straight away, like you wouldn't be able to get through those games.
No, it's the difference between throwing your controller or going through and pushing through to beat the level. Yeah, for sure.
I would start to think I should probably just stop this whole gaming thing. Like it's quite an unhealthy obsession of mine. I'm throwing too many controllers out the windows. My anger's coming out in all other facets of my life. I can't deal with this anymore.
Luckily, you have that beautiful chillwave soundtrack to calm you down.
Exactly. So it's a good job it doesn't have a soundtrack like Doom.
There you go. Oh, that's a good soundtrack too.
All right, so my number 4, and actually you'll be happy, McWomble, because this will be quick, because mine is also The Walking Dead. Mine's nice. For a separate reason. So I think The Walking Dead, even though maybe later on in its seasons it wasn't doing very well. Wow, I scared Evan so much with my pick he had to run to the next room. He's like, not that pick. I picked it because The Walking Dead brought back the adventure game and brought it into a whole new light that we'd never seen before. I think it took amazing RPG elements and inserted into the classic adventure game. And because of that game, I don't think we would get games like now I'm blanking on the games.
Until Dawn.
Life is Strange is one. Life is Strange did not make this list because I felt like Walking Dead was too much of an influence to be able to make Life is Strange happen.
Yeah.
So even though I think Life is Strange is a better game, I have to give it its props. So also the other one I can think of is Until Dawn. It's another one that got really extremely influenced by the style of The Walking Dead. And the fact that it just brought in a new genre for itself. Yes, the company, which also is kind of another interesting side note of how it just went down after creating this genre and they stretched themselves too thin. But I think what is really important out of it is that many other games succeeded because of this first game that came out. And it was a really good first season. I didn't play the rest of it. I didn't have time to, but I really did enjoy the first season, even though I did find Clementine annoying. But the ending did satisfy me to the point where I got over
Monster. You monster.
Yeah.
Come on.
Sweet little girl annoying.
Yeah, sweet little girl that constantly is holding your leg and just going, Oli, Oli. And you're like, oh my gosh, can you just shut up for a second? I'm just trying to deal with this shit.
She is in like constant danger of being eaten by zombies. But yeah. But okay, I was in the bathroom, but thanks to these Bluetooth headphones, I agree with what you said about Life is Strange. Everything you said, yeah.
Okay.
Well, actually, I never really thought about it like that. Like when you said that if it wasn't for The Walking Dead Season 1, we wouldn't have all of these other games. And hey, you're kind of wrong. Maybe with the exception of Detroit Become Human, because I think he was already on that trajectory. But
yeah,
but I think you're right about Until Dawn and Life is Strange. Life is Strange is very special to me in certain ways. I couldn't possibly put it on my top 10 list, but it is special.
Right. Okay. So we've been doing this for an hour and we haven't even got through our first two picks. So
3 hours.
We've been doing this all day.
I'm gonna have to take a piss break. Just say it before we get to the end.
Yeah. So, right. My number 4 pick, and it's been mentioned already, and this is where it comes into kind of why this game over and above other open world games. And it's something that Matt was talking about on Game Faces. How many times have you played the game? And I've only ever played things like Horizon Zero Dawn, Grand Theft Auto. I've only ever played those once. I've played through this game twice in full, and at one point thought I'm going to go for the Platinum Trophy. And that's Sleeping Dogs.
All right.
Oh. Wow, I didn't see this coming.
I would not put it there, but I'm so happy you did. I love this game. I love this game so much. Oh my god, so good.
Blizzard would not be happy with this pick, by the way. Would not be happy.
Who cares what Blizzard thinks?
Fuck them.
The combat in this game is so much better than GTA. It's the okay, I was thinking Red Dead Redemption, but I recently went back and tried to play that again, and it's rough. It is rough to play the original version now. So whilst I did love Red Dead Redemption at the time when it first came out, I couldn't put it here because it is so difficult to replay now. Whereas I played Sleeping Dogs on Xbox 360, and then I saw it on sale for PS4, and just bang, I'm buying it, and I played through the whole damn thing. Right. And I was on my platinum journey, Evan, and then I hit the racing missions.
Oh no!
No, I can't do it.
That's the most frustrating thing about where like you're gonna go for the platinum, and it's the one, whatever it may be, that one thing where you're like I'm out.
Yeah.
The only thing I will say about this game is that, you know, what really makes me love this game, not only just like what I said earlier about the combat when I was comparing it to Grand Theft Auto 5, the other part that makes it so interesting is that when you play Grand Theft Auto, it's like America, and being American, I'm sick of I've seen plenty of America. I'm good with understanding the culture and everything like that. Yeah. And so
go somewhere else with an open world game.
Yeah. So seeing something in China and not only seeing the world around
it's Hong Kong.
Hong Kong, correct.
Well, Mitch is
liberate Hong Kong.
Chinese government.
Yes.
No, he's no. Oh, so Yeah, he's he's Blizzard. Pro Blizzard.
Oh no, I'm not pro
Probation.
Blizzard. Holy cow, no! Oh no,
Hong
no.
Kong, China.
Do not. I'm sorry. It is in Hong Kong.
Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
But I really love that the culture is really shown throughout the game. It is, you could get yourself a really good culture lesson about of how society works in that game.
And you can learn some interesting swear words in different languages.
Yes, you can. I just think it's a phenomenal game, and I'm so sad the sequel got canceled, and I was sad the way they wanted to take the sequel too. So hopefully they bring it back, because
They went online Triad Wars and it just didn't work. But Matt, the other thing about Sleeping Dogs, it's got the RPG elements that you were talking about that were absent from the last 2 GTAs.
Yeah.
So you can up your stats, and you can eat pork buns and curry fish balls. Just wandering around the world, is it? Hey, you look like you could use a pork bun. It's like, yes, I could use a pork bun.
There is a great side quest in that game where there's one of like the main bosses. You have to go to his house, and he's like super into feng shui.
Yeah,
and all you do is like
Move
fuck his apartment up and freak him the fuck out. That is a great side quest. It is like, those are the type of side quests that, you know, it's one of the ones that, like, obviously I'm talking about it now. I haven't touched the game for years, but those are the types of side quests that stand out. And Sleeping Dogs, like, yeah, that was one of them. Like essentially in any open world game, that is one of my favorites. Probably.
It's crazy to think that was going to be a true crime game.
Yeah.
And then the studio went under with THQ, and Ubisoft bought it up and changed the title.
It was Activision.
Was it Activision?
I thought Square published Sleeping Dogs.
They
did,
but Activision, then it went to Square.
Oh, all right, okay.
Because it was going to be true crime, and then they dropped it, and then Activision, and then Ubisoft. Square Enix, yes, was like, give me it.
So,
all right, Berkough.
Matt.
All right, number 3 pick, The Stanley Parable.
You have the weirdest picks.
I don't think that I need to really say much about this game. This game challenges everything about that you think you know about player agency.
Are you being the intellectual snob on this? So
I'm not trying to be. I thought we were picking our favorite games of the decade.
Matthew knew full well he was the intellectual snob of the group, but he continued to say anything but.
So, yeah, Stanley Parable, one of my favorite games of the decade, obviously. It's number 3 on my list. Just such a great game. Very short, but infinitely replayable, I feel like. I don't know. Is anybody else?
There's a new version coming out. There's a revised console version coming out, isn't there?
Yeah, but I don't think it actually...
Yeah, I remember seeing that. It's finally coming to consoles.
I don't think it's adding anything to the game,
Did any of you see the video? Because they put out a video last week to announce that they delayed it till next year, the Ultra Deluxe Edition.
Nice.
Did any of you see that trailer?
No.
Oh, I highly recommend you go watch it. It's the best video I've ever seen of a company announcing the delay of something.
Oh, nice.
It's just great. So funny.
Because they're the intellectual ones, and us 4 are just video game plebs.
Video game plebs.
Matt will appreciate that. So I wonder what Matt's number 1 pick's going to be now.
Yeah, I'm expecting something crazy wacky. Like
Dr.
Only be Death Stranding, the most intellectual.
It's going to be Dr. Doodle the game. That's what it's going to be. It's going to be Avatar. It's going to be Avatar the game.
Liam, what's your number 3 pick?
Portal 2.
Ooh.
My favorite Valve franchise, the best Valve game. Portal 2 is a perfect game. It's like the only perfect game on my list. The game is perfect in every way.
But not perfect enough to be number 1.
No, not perfect enough to be number 1.
But I was going to say, my number 1 is a perfect game. And I don't think Portal 2 is a perfect game.
My number 1 and 2 are not perfect games.
I think it's a really clever, very well done puzzle platformer. I do not think it's a perfect game though.
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
It's just the puzzles as they go along just get better and better, more inventive. Like the first game is difficult, but not difficult enough. and some of the personality sort of disappears after a while once you're playing that game. In the second game, like, it just is paced so perfectly, like in between where it has a joke around, actually forwards the story, and then throws something really difficult at you. And like, without that, I'd think, oh wow, this is just such a good game, with all of these amazing ideas and excellent writing. And then there's the whole co-op campaign. I remember I played that.
There's co-op in that game?
Yeah, that was the big selling
there
point
is,
of the
yeah.
sequel.
Whole co-op campaign.
Yeah.
I spent the whole day playing that with one of my friends from school. I invited them over, and we're just going to play this all day today. And we thought, oh yeah, you could come back tomorrow and we'll finish it. No, he just stayed at my house. I think it was like 3 a.m. We finished it, and it was like, yeah, I should probably go home now. I was like, yeah, you probably should. He left, and my mom had a go at me because I was playing this game so late. I just love it to death, and I have fond memories of playing the co-op campaign and the single-player campaign.
That's the seal of approval, isn't it? So I played this game far too late into the night.
There you go. Yeah.
Right, moving on. Evan, number 3.
This is where it gets hard. I have my 3 games, but I don't know where to place them.
Try 1, 2, and 3.
You had an hour.
I know. I had plenty of time.
Which you choose again comes third.
I'm guessing Yakuza is going to be his number 3.
My number 3 is Inside. 2016's Inside.
Just all indie games.
Weirdly enough, yeah. I remember this game this was my favorite game of 2016. I played it at the end of the year, like days before recording the podcast Reload 2016 Game of the Year Awards episode, and this game fucking blew my mind. Like, who would have thought, like, a game where you're essentially just moving from left to right, and there's like a jump button and interact button, and that's about it. And they just do the craziest shit with this game. I can understand how you could argue like the ending is not that satisfying because it leaves you with more questions than answers. Like, I totally get that, but
I can agree with you. I'm on that boat. I enjoyed it, except for that ending. I didn't get it.
I do understand that, but there is a moment in that game. It's probably the biggest like what the fuck moment I've ever had in a game. But like that type of stuff, like the explosion of impactful moments. It's not about that. It's about where that game starts and where it starts going slowly but surely into this like what the hell is happening in this world. You might want to say it's got a good carrot on the end of that stick. And it just keeps going and going, and it's got like the most menial tasks in the game, but it just works so well with how they present the problems to you. Like, there's one simple one where you're in the first floor of a barn and there's a hole above you onto the second floor. You can't go any further on the first floor, and there's a ladder leaning to the left. And so you climb up the ladder, and like the classic, like if you push the opposite way, the player will like look over, and then you do like the jump across. You do the jump and you can't make it. You're like, well, what the hell do I do? All you do is go down, grab the ladder, and just push it over to the right side, and then climb up that way. And it's just like these really, really simple like physics-based things. Where like, yeah, you're just moving a ladder. Is really, really cool. There's a lot of stuff in the game I don't really want to give away, but when it starts going deep down the rabbit hole, like I was glued to the screen, enthralled. And again, this is a theme here. This was actually not on purpose or not intentional. My brother came to Japan probably the second time. This is weird. I know. This is not intentional.
Checkmark brother.
He had never heard of Inside. And I said, we're sitting down and we're fucking playing through the entirety of Inside. And we did. I didn't tell him any of the puzzles. I sat next to him and we played it 3 hours straight. And he was just like, we were just glued to the screen. It's a fucking amazing game. I love something as simple as a 2D sides, like not platform, but a 2D kind of left to right game. And it's just like, wow, the game blew my mind when I played it. I still think about it daily. It's like the first thing I do when I brush my teeth.
I feel like I know what Evan's number 1 pick's gonna be, but I don't want to ruin it.
It's going to be Limbo, isn't it?
No,
The only thing I would say about
come out
that game
second,
is I don't think it would make my top 10 list, but I think it's definitely in my top 20. I think it is a really good game. I just don't think it's that influential or that memorable.
Memorable.
So memorable,
That thing is
I've not
like
played it.
burned into my mind.
Yeah, I can't forget it.
See, I get that, but like the thing with the whole that I think for you it played on your expectations, but for me, I knew to grab the ladder instantly and just slide it right over. I didn't even bother trying to like jump because in the beginning you kind of know how far you can jump, and I was like, you can't make that. So I just grabbed the ladder and moved it.
So basically,
for me, it didn't have
you're
that kind of
smarter
moment.
than I am, therefore.
Yeah. So we're going through ranking how intelligent we are by what games we're picking on. So I don't believe that Matt is as intelligent as he's making out with his picks.
He never really beat the game. He watched walkthroughs.
Actually,
I'm just kidding, Matt.
Actually, right, Mitch, correct us all by going through with your number 3 pick.
My number 3 made me throw my controller for the first time in my entire career as a gamer. And that's Bloodborne.
Madden 08?
No, it was Bloodborne.
Bloodborne.
Wow.
So the reason why I picked Bloodborne is there has been, out of all the games on my top 10 list, my top 5 list, 2 games, this one and my number 2, created their own genre that changed the landscape of games forever. I think no one can argue that Souls is now a term that is used constantly when you talk about a video game, a Souls-like game,
or Soulsborne.
And for something to have that kind of impact, you cannot stop the inevitable. I think Bloodborne is its best incarnation of its genre or type. I don't know. It depends on how you want to define it, but I think even though I had thrown my controller multiple times, I always knew it was my fault. And for once, a game I felt like never was cheap against me, in that I had to be really strategic about it when trying to tackle it. And I think this game was no different, even though it was quite enjoyable for my roommates to watch me chuck my controller on the couch nicely, of course, so I don't break it.
What is the when an enemy's about to attack and you shoot him with the gun and then you go in for that what is that
I didn't
called?
do that. That's a parry, but I didn't do that.
But it's called something special, when you do the.
It's called getting good, isn't it?
Oh yeah, the get good move.
Well, and
there's
for
nothing
me,
better.
When I first played that game,
that.
It was so interesting because I never played a Souls-like game before. That was my first introduction into a Souls-like game.
Same here.
At first, I absolutely hated it. Like the first chunk, I was like, this sucks. I put it down. I didn't come back to it for months. And I was like, okay, I'm really going to give this the shot it deserves. And so I gave it a shot, and I actually quite enjoyed it as I got further on and understood what kind of game this really was. That you're supposed to, dying is okay. The concept of that is not really played on in many video games. About dying is an okay concept for you to happen. You're supposed to be dead.
I couldn't put this game on my list for a number of reasons. One being I've never played it.
That's a good reason.
That's a great reason.
Yeah.
And I think 2 would be the toxic online culture that those games have created.
Yeah,
you could say that about almost any kind of video game, though. Like you can. Like my
You
number
can't say that
2.
about the Talos principle.
You can honestly, you can. Grand Theft Auto creates that kind of atmosphere as well for people, especially online. If you're I don't know, Call of Duty creates that kind of atmosphere. You can name so many games. Fortnite. You can name so many games.
So Liam,
it's a different kind of toxicity, though. It's like that I'm better than you. I know better than you.
Yeah,
it's a fucking video game. everybody has a different opinion, and yours matters just as much as everybody else's. Fuck off.
Well, it's just fanboyism. It's the same thing as
I mean,
fanboyism.
I personally prefer Dark Souls 3 as out of all of the Soulsborne games, but it doesn't make your opinion any less relevant.
Sure. Yeah, you're Liam. You're a big FromSoft fan, right?
Yeah, I love the Souls games.
But we were just talking about before the stream about kind of how the Star Wars fandom is can get annoying at times.
I can't stand it. I just can't.
So like,
I'm guessing it's like it's a fan base that prides itself on being negative about everything.
Well, it prides itself on getting the movie it thinks it deserves, and it's like you shouldn't know what you want out of a Star Wars movie. When you're surprised, that's great. Like, I mean, you shouldn't have to know everything.
There's a nicer way to go about asking for a better film, you know?
I like The Last Jedi, so that's me. So
I think it's a very good film, not a very good Star Wars film. But that's against the point. I don't want to go down that rabbit.
I can see that. But anyways, okay.
And what Evan was mentioning earlier is when he was trying to say the parry from Bloodborne, he meant a visceral attack. Which I
visceral attack. There it is.
Trying to remember as well.
That is. There are a few things that make me feel as good as doing a visceral attack. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, that's true. A visceral feels great. All right, McWomble, you're number 3.
Yeah, and well done, Matt, for not talking about Star Wars because you think that Solo's a good game, a good film.
A good game.
It would be an awesome.
It had to be noted.
Yes, that needs to happen.
We should give him 10 minutes to talk about Star Wars at the end of the podcast.
Right.
Well, after he has a couple more beers in him and do an after show again.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I would like to see that myself. Yeah.
That was genius. Oh, God, that was so good.
It was his idea.
When you've dealt with Kojima's shit for us. Best internet moment of the year. Right, so my number 3 game is Batman Arkham Asylum. And you can not say anything negative about this game.
McWomble.
Yes.
Come out this decade.
Asylum came out, what?
In 2009.
Yeah, it's 2009.
Was it the end? It was the end of 2009, though, right?
Well, it's 2019, so we're doing a decade.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Oh, I thought it was 2010 to 2020.
Oh, I was thinking 2009 to 2019.
Yeah.
That's what I thought we were doing.
Well, I was thinking 2010 to 2019.
All right, well, it's 3, it's 2.
That's 10 years, technically.
Note to self, establish better rules next time with the topic.
I still don't care. The Game of the Year edition would have come out in 2010.
Okay. It's a great game. It's a great game.
And the reason that I picked this above Arkham City, which did come out in 2011, is I only played through Arkham City once. This I played through twice because I went back through and did a new game plus to try and use all the abilities that I had to unlock the different areas and trying to do the Riddler puzzles, which I just got fed up and stopped. The ending of this game where the Joker turns into a mega toxic Joker isn't
Bane Joker.
Yeah.
But the
Joker.
The claustrophobic nature of being kind of isolated in Arkham Asylum, and just the way that Rocksteady told the world and then showed the world that you can make a decent superhero game. And that's
it was kind of the start, wasn't it?
Yeah,
and that's why we've got Marvel's Spider-Man, which nearly made it on my list. But if it weren't for Rocksteady, we'd have shitty movie tie-ins of video games still, or no video, or no comic book adaptations of games.
We wouldn't have Spider-Man.
Exactly.
That's what he just said that.
So
Mitch was agreeing with me.
I didn't hear him say Spider-Man. That's all.
Sorry.
I've only just now played Arkham Asylum this year, like 3 months ago, when it went on sale, and it was the Arkham collection for like $15 or whatever.
How'd you like it?
I love it. I think it's probably one of the best mashups of Metroidvania and beat 'em up mechanics that I've ever had the pleasure of playing. And
Well, yeah, that's a good way to put it.
you know,
That combat system is one of the most smoothest, so fun I've probably ever played.
and it hits those nostalgia. It pulls on your heartstrings with the nostalgia because you've got Kevin Conroy as Batman,
Mark Hamill as
Mark
Joker.
Hamill
Yeah,
as
because it takes
Joker.
place during the animated series version of the thing. I don't know if it would have had the same impact. I think it would have been a good game, but I don't think it would have been the great game it was without those two actors playing
because
those
then you had
characters.
No, yeah,
Vader
it's
and
kind
whoever
of
the
it's
hell
kind of the
else, and
perfect storm.
Because
in Origins, and that was
I just
rubbish.
think Mark Hamill is so iconic as a Joker. Like you just, especially in the animated space and in a non-live action space, that honestly, I think this game is so much better for it because of those two actors playing their
That was
role.
a great opening to a game, by the way, where they're wheeling
Oh,
Joker into
yeah.
the bit of
Yeah.
exposition, how that plays out. It's
With the
it's
credits,
awesome.
it's like almost
Yeah.
like a TV show scene. It's so good. I love that.
Yeah.
So that's my slightly contrived Liam
No,
entry onto this list.
Well, if 2009 was included when I was picking, then Arkham Asylum would probably be my number 4. So
Yeah.
I completely agree with you.
All right, Matt, what do you
Back
got?
to Matt.
Number 2, Super Mario Odyssey.
Ooh,
So this is
Wait a minute. Did you get all 999 Power Moons?
No,
I don't
fuck
think you
no.
can put it on your list if you don't.
I I know that you spent the time getting that, but no. So I was intrigued by the game, and then when I got my Switch, obviously it was a must-have, right? You gotta have Breath of the Wild, you gotta have Mario. I have not felt like a little kid playing a video game since this in many years, right? So sitting down to play this, I don't know. I just, this wave of joy hit me, and so that's why it's number 2 on my list.
I can respect it. And the thing that just I can never get past that game, like I like it as a platformer. There's just some hardcore issues I have with the game. Like 2 of them. One, I think the moons are extremely disrespectful of your time as a player. That you do not need 999 moons to collect. You do not. It's just asking too much of, especially when it's doing the same tasks over and over again. If it was a little more unique in that aspect, I would appreciate it more. The second one is there are times the platforming is horrendous, and that is especially in the food world when you're jumping and you have to jump directly up towards the screen,
I know exactly
and then you
what
fall.
you're talking about, but I feel the same way that everybody feels about Dark Souls with this game. Like there's nothing wrong with the mechanics or the controls.
just you. There's something wrong with you.
No, I think it's really the controls, because I missed multiple times.
No
especially
fucking
on
way.
that boss.
It is not the controls.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
Because
It's the
I
controls are
missed
perfect.
I missed
It's-
multiple
no, it
times
is
too.
not.
And I
Oh,
never
oh,
felt
no,
like it
oh,
was.
no.
like
The
it was
controls
the
are
controls.
perfect. Most definitely.
They
What is that? 3 out of 5? I think it's settled then.
it is really good. Like, and again, I mean, this is being
Pedantic.
nitpicky, but definitely like the one in the food level. It took me to beat that boss multiple times because of that issue. It doesn't clearly state your positioning when you're jumping up and towards, because you have to jump up onto I can't remember what it was, but it's like some kind of food thing to get up into the air and be able to jump up on top of the opponent in the final food boss battle.
Well, it does that with when you're on the moon too. Like that's some of the most frustrating gameplay, and I still haven't gotten past all the rabbits on the moon.
Oh, I've gotten past the rabbits on the
after the
moon.
credits have rolled. Like,
But that's not a platforming issue. If for control wise, platforming wise,
That's what I'm
on the
saying.
moon. But the food level definitely has a platforming issue. But the rest of it is great. It's solid. It's a lot of fun. There's some really cool moments in it. It's just that one world, they really needed to adjust that.
I was waiting for us to. When was going to be the first argument?
But again, I really liked the game. I enjoyed it.
Back to the
just,
schoolyard.
those 2 things I just can't get past.
That's fair. Yeah.
I mean, it does to its credit, at least, it does. The amount of moons you are getting is not hindering your progression forward. But I just felt bad because I really wanted to get to that really hard platforming section on I think it's the darker side of the moon. And I never got to get there because it asked me to get too many moons, and I was bored of getting them because I was like, "This is stupid. Like, I don't need to be doing more of this."
I fell off that game when I realised that actually no, you need to collect this arbitrary number of moons to progress the story, and I was like, I can't be asked with this anymore.
Well, I mean, yeah, but the story ends.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I played through the story, and then so I've got no intention of carrying on, and I traded it in, and I got some crazy amount of money for it.
Oh, I bet.
But the rest of the game though is like Rainbow Road and
yeah,
Super Mario
World.
World.
If you don't play past.
I mean, it's.
I don't care. I traded it in, and I got £50 back for a game that I spent $59.99 on. So that was the best thing about Super Mario Odyssey is the fact that I got £50 worth of store credit back when I traded it in.
So to be
better
fair,
is that
one of the reasons that it's number 2 on my list is because it does have that. You can stop after the credits and be perfectly fine and happy with the game and move on with your life, or
I'm not. I want to play that darker side of the moon, and I can't do it because the moons are in my way.
Or you can be like Evan and be a crazy person and get 999 moons.
Nothing's in your way. Do it all.
See,
Fucking
Evan,
play the game. You're fine.
Here's the thing, Evan. I literally was looking at a guide to just like get the rest of the moon so I could get to the darker side of the moon, and I was so bored because I had to look at a guide to get those moons.
Okay,
like,
look,
it was just too many. If they dropped it by like 100 or so, I would have been in the. I mean, yeah, if they dropped it by like 100 or so, I would have been near that threshold.
There's a ton that you can. There's a ton that you get in the store, right? It's not all 990.
Oh no, I bought them all in the store too. Right? Like I totally did. And it does a really good job when you buy them all in the store and then go through the story. It does get you to the dark side of the moon.
Right.
But the darker side of the moon, there's so many more moons you have to get. It's like 400 more. I'm a very mid-max kind of guy. That's like, okay, what does it take for me to get like the best stuff like Dragon Quest? I'll look that shit up. I'm not kidding you. I didn't look up how to get a single moon in that game, and I got them all. And it wasn't that hard. I'm telling you. Oh no, we've had this conversation. You and I have actually had this conversation on Podcast Reload because you and I had this conversation, exact one, and I still hold by my statement.
Right.
I will say 999 is probably too many. But
thank you.
I couldn't get enough.
Where do you draw the line? 959? 949?
902. You just don't want to give them the 999.
Right. I wish they released DLC that they released a new level with 100 new moons. I couldn't get enough of that game.
And see if they did that would be fun. But I holding a person back from playing its most difficult platforming level by moons is disheartening, and I think it's a disservice to the time of the player. And
the one thing I would say if that were to be released by, say, EA or Ubisoft or Activision, there would be microtransactions in there for you to be able to buy those moons to unlock the levels.
And I would have paid for the microtransaction to go to the level.
That's the worst thing I've heard today.
All right. Who's Liam? You're number two.
Number 2 pick.
Okay. Well, can any of you guess what my number 2 pick would be?
No, it's 3:30 in the morning. I am not guessing.
It's a Mass Effect or a Souls game.
Mass Effect.
Oh, nice.
Mass Effect 2, to be precise.
2.
Mass Effect 2 and then number 2.
Yeah. What can I say about this game? Like, it just opened up a whole new world for me. Like, I just love the Mass Effect world in terms of like its lore. I read all of the codec in those games. I'm obsessed with it. I love the characters.
What it does, it tells you some of the story, but then some of the bits you have to read. I know.
It's a strange concept.
Yeah, but yeah, I just enjoy every second of playing those games, and I mean, I think I played Mass Effect 2 probably 9 times all the way through, with all of the DLC.
Oh God!
I'm
so sorry.
And I just never get tired of it, and it's just perfect in every way to me. It's not though. It's not perfect. But it's
Hey,
perfect
Shadow
for me.
Broker is one of the best DLCs ever made, I would say.
Yeah.
I
any
absolutely
game.
love Shadow
Yeah.
Brokers. Oh
great.
man, especially if you have a romance with Liara, it makes it so much more interesting
Oh
with
yeah, I
that
suppose it would.
dynamic.
Yeah.
The best romance.
What's the Cerberus DLC that you get? We have to like fight the Geth.
Oh,
Isn't that in 3?
No, it's in 2.
is
There's
that Arrival?
is it Arrival? I can't remember what it's called, but I loved that.
Oh, never mind. I know what you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
But
can't
no,
remember.
I like that game a lot. It very much so.
I'll reserve my comments because
You could have just been quiet and not said anything. Now you just gave it away. I think we're all in agreement with you. That's a really, really good game.
Yeah. Solid.
Evan, what do you got on your list? Number 2.
I apologize, by the way. I live in Japan. There's not a lot of space, so everything is kind of in one room. I'm
you were
sorry.
getting your hot sauce restocked.
Oh yeah, yep, that's exactly what's happened. That is a
yeah.
euphemism for something, for sure.
Sorry, there's the hot sauce you mentioned last week, Evan. My favorite hot sauce as well. I fucking love that shit.
Which one?
Oh my god.
Cholula?
Was it?
Got it here somewhere. Where is it? Cholula. Yeah, that's right.
It just keeps it.
I was gonna say, are you gonna pull a Mitch and just
He
bring the hot
keeps
sauce onto the
his
stream?
hot sauce like I keep my games close
I
by.
literally have it somewhere close by.
Oh, it's great. Yeah. I was really, really psyched when I finally found it in a.
I'm
like kind of
always
a-
a hand reach of a game away.
That was 90%.
Oh, yeah,
That was 90% of the comments that I got from friends and family last week was, oh, by the way, this is my favorite hot sauce.
See, that's important.
It's a great conversation starter.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right,
bringing
Evan, what do you
stuff
got?
in. I'm getting the sweats.
Shut up. You got on with it.
My second game is Yakuza 6.
Ooh.
I haven't played the sixth one.
2016's Yakuza 6. It came out in December in Japan and came out maybe the next year in the States. I'd like to pull a really, really cheap, the best game of the decade is the Yakuza series, or some people have totally cheated on lists with like the Mass Effect series. It's like I can't do that. I cannot do that. It's not fair. As a series, the Yakuza series is by far my favorite of probably any decade ever. But when you cut them up and split them out into individual games, which they are, the individual games, it's Yakuza 6. Played 4, fell in love with the series within 5, and 6 was just it's such a good game. I mean, I've talked about this series for so long, and we're running
Have you?
time. This might be the second time I've talked about it, but
If we probably added up the amount of time that you speak about this series of games, it would probably add up to, I don't know, at least 30 or 40 hours. At least as long as it's taken you to get a platinum trophy in one of them.
oh yeah, and the platinum trophy I did get Yakuza 6. I've never played a game where I just go to karaoke and just hit the buttons over. I must have sang a song like 100 times, just like no reason, not because it had a trophy or anything, just because I wanted to sing that song because it's such a great song and it's just so, I don't know, the game's amazing.
You know what's funny is I went back and listened to the very first episode of the Beerumverate earlier today. And
Did I talk about Yakuza 6?
No, but Keith resigned to saying he was like, we will never talk about Yakuza if I have anything to say about this.
Well, clearly he doesn't have anything to say about it.
Coincidentally, we actually did a Yakuza episode.
We broke him.
See what
Well,
happens.
it kind of
All
has
right.
to, because everyone won't shut up about it.
So
I know. But okay, that's as far as I'll take it. You guys know very well why it's on my list. Yakuza 6.
No, wait,
right.
I want to ask Evan a question about Yakuza.
Yes.
So, with the complete genre swap, flip the table on Yakuza 7, how does that game Like a Dragon fall in with the rest of the series.
Oh, don't get him started. He's gushing
All
over
right.
this fucking
He
game
talked
already.
about it last week.
Sorry,
Okay, I will say
suffer.
quickly. When I first heard about it, I did not like it because there are not a lot of games now
I'm gonna use the
that are in
restroom.
the brawler genre. There are plenty of games that have that are JRPGs, and I thought you're kind of the brawler genre needs to have its space, and the Yakuza series is pretty much the only game series that has that, and now you're putting it into a genre that is turning out games all the time. However, so I did not like it. I downloaded the Japanese demo and I played it, and I fucking love it. It is great. It is added like a fresh angle to everything else is the same. Wacky side quests, interesting characters, everything like that. But it's turn-based now, and they do interesting things with magic. So it's like not magic. Instead of a homeless guy, instead of magic.
Throw homeless people at your opponents.
Right, he's throwing birdseed at someone, and the pigeons attack him, or he's using a lighter to on a sake bottle to do a fire spell. It's like it's great. I was very skeptical, but I'm very happy with the turn. And there's been 7 games with the brawler stuff.
I did see some of the clips that you put on Twitter, and they did make me laugh quite loud.
Yeah, it's got everything else. It's got everything
have all
else.
the same shit that turned me off as Zero.
Also, how disrespectful of Matt to go on a toilet break during the most important segment of the entire show.
Well, when he comes back, we could just say, "Oh, we're done now."
Yeah,
we got through. Right, so
let's do it.
Mitch, before Matt comes back and tells you that you're wrong about what your second pick might be, what is your second pick?
He might actually like my second pick. But I will say one thing really, really short about the Yakuza thing, Evan. The only thing that turns me off of that game, I do not like the look of the protagonist. There's just
the crazy hair.
Yeah, it's just a little.
Ichiban.
Yeah, I really need to cut that down.
I don't know. I mean, that's kind of like that kind of like fake perm.
Yeah,
that just Japanese people. No, it's kind of like it's part of his character. Is like a lot of guys that want to like kind of be badass, kind of get these.
I just don't like the look of the hair. But anyways,
I'll tell you, man.
Sorry, Mitch. If we're going to carry on talking about Yakuza, the least, because we did an entire episode trying to convince me to like those games, the least Evan could have done was shown up for the Star Trek episode and just sat there and looked and just watched Matt and I talk about Star Trek for the best part of an hour.
Are we done talking about Yakuza?
So my number 2 is going to be a game that I think has changed the industry forever in so many different ways, and that is Minecraft.
I didn't know you played Minecraft at all.
I've played some of it. I'm not a huge fan of Minecraft. It's not my kind of game, but I think
so you're definitely taking the impact.
This one very much is all about this is all about its influence on the industry, because I mean, you could look anything. They just did the YouTube year in the review. Minecraft is the most watched thing on YouTube. Fortnite is second. Yeah, and it's billions of views, billions of hours. It's insane to think a game that is all about building something could turn into a phenomenon like no other, and really pushed gamers, playing with other people watching. I think that was one of the trailblazers to set up that. And I just think honestly, it just does it right. And it's been almost around for all the 10 years, and no one can come close to it. No one can touch it. Everyone tries to mimic something from it. Everyone tries to make something of their own out of it, and they can never touch this game.
Well, they do say that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and the number of people who've tried to spoof that concept does show that what impact that has had on the games industry and the surrounding culture, and how it's grabbed a whole generation's attention. Personally, don't care. I don't like world creation games, but I can see why you went with that.
Well, and to be honest, it would have been my number one based off like my criteria, but I wanted to choose a number one that I feel like I actually really enjoyed as well. And I don't think it had the same impact as Minecraft will have, because I think no game could ever touch its impact on society along with the gaming industry. But I think this game, this number one will satisfy myself and other people of worthy of a number one. But yeah, that's me. And so Minecraft is my number two.
I will
McWomble.
say, I will say before
go ahead.
McWomble speaks, and I'm going to cut him off because I'd never get a chance to cut Keith off.
I was actually going to say, Matt, you look like you were going to say something.
The one time that I cut you off is the one time that you're going to be like, yeah, Matt, go ahead and say something. So I watched an infographic on Facebook or Twitter somewhere where they showed the basically revenue and sales over time of games, and it was a line chart that re-ranked games as they sold through time, and it's fascinating to watch how much Minecraft sold and how quickly it jumps to the top ahead of Tetris of all games.
Well, I mean, it's also something that's on every platform. Everything.
Well, so is Tetris, though. That to the point that you were making about it just being this highly influential, highly unique experience in terms of gaming, like and how it's been a very accessible experience for a lot of different types of people. Yeah. But anyway, that's the point that I wanted to make. It just kind of blew my mind watching that.
Yeah, agreed with you 100%. All right, McWomble.
Point out, I think I'm probably the person here that's probably played Minecraft the most. I'm assuming.
Probably.
Yeah, back in the day, like I used to play it before it even went into beta. Like, used to enjoy the shit out of it back then. One of the things that I loved about Minecraft back in the day was watching it sort of transform from a very basic game into a very complex game. I think that was one of the most interesting things about following it, because it was very successful from the outset, but watching it become an actual fully formed great game was also one of the more satisfying things I've watched over the past decade.
Yeah, and someone actually built a 2-scale version of the Enterprise 2 in Minecraft.
I think they've built every single ship you can think imaginable in that game.
Right.
Right, back round to me. And here we go to no surprise.
Mass Effect 3 or 2?
Mass Effect 3.
Oh!
I agree with you.
Is your number 2?
Mass Effect 3 is my number 2 game.
All right.
And I've mentioned a few times before, there was a thing for N7 Day. What's your lasting memories of Mass Effect? And there's been a few, but the one that I keep mentioning is when through my first playthrough of Mass Effect 3, which I did 3 times, the moment where, spoilers, Mordin Solus sacrifices himself to cure the Krogan genophage. And literally, I was welling up, and then my wife walks in the room, and she's like, "What's going on?" Because I'd spent so long building relationships with the characters in this game, when they're actually doing something heroic, you do get emotional about it, and there is that attachment that you have to the individual characters. So by having your choices going through the game, there is the nice moment at the end of this where you do go through and you do speak to all of your party members, and some characters who had a peripheral touch on your story, and it's a great goodbye to everyone. And all the stuff about the ending, is that people just need to get over themselves. And Liam, you and I have spoke about which ending's the right ending. and
Oh, yeah.
it entirely depends on how you want to position your character in the overall narrative of the universe. So so the Renegade playthrough that I did, absolutely the right ending was Shepard controlling the Reapers.
Yeah.
That's the absolute right ending if you're playing as a Renegade character. If you're playing as a
actually, the Destroy ending is the Renegade ending, if you don't realise. And the Control ending is actually the Paragon ending. As you can tell by the colours, the Paragon ending is blue Control, and the Renegade ending is red Destroy.
I think we're gonna get off on a tangent right now.
Well, very much so.
But if anyone even dares to try and disagree with me about how good this game is that we're going to fall out.
Yeah, I mean,
and you don't have to collect 999 fucking moons.
I do like Mass Effect 3 is my personal favorite of the 3 games, and I'm this is one where McWomble and I are in total agreement in regards to ending of the ending of the series as well. I think actually the power of giving you choice is always what the game has allowed you to do, and to give you the power of choice at the end is a perfect way to end the game.
And punish you for making no choice. That's such a good one.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love it. So no, I'm in full agreement with you. And you know, if there was a top 10 list, Mass Effect would be on this list, but it's a top 5, so I couldn't.
And like Evan was saying, you can't cheese it by putting in the trilogy.
Yeah, Mass Effect 3 is my favorite of the series as well. Spoiler: it didn't make my list because I knew that Keith, you would pick at least one Mass Effect game that we could talk about, and Liam, I figured you would probably have one as well. Mass Effect 3, I would say the Destroy ending is actually Renegade, and the reason that I say that is the conversation and scene that you have with Tally, where she dies. Spoiler alert.
It's been a decade. It's okay.
Yeah. So it's just my 2 cents, I guess.
Well, the fact is,
everyone spoke except for Evan. Do you got anything on it, Evan?
Oh,
he had to put
I think Mass Effect 3 is a really good game. Yeah, I wasn't that torn up about the ending not living up to whatever expectations the fans initially had about where it was going to finish. But yeah, like I thought it was great. 2 is my favorite, but I thought gameplay wise 3 is clearly the best. But yeah, it's an amazing game. Like that cast of characters is just something that I'll never forget for sure.
All right, Matt.
I would just like to point out 2 things. It is one, the fact that I've just played Mass Effect 2 so much, 9 times. I've had far more time with that game. When I initially played the game and played the ending, I didn't like it. I think the main reason that people didn't like the ending when the game first came out was because the developers literally lied about what it was going to be like. They lied. Like they said it was going to be tons of different possibilities. They basically set the audience up for it not being free colored choices right at the end of the game. So I sort of understood. You can
decide to do nothing. There's 4 choices.
Well, no, and that was added in the extended cut as well. That wasn't even there to begin with. It was just 3 very confusingly not explained at all endings to begin with. The extended cut fixed it though. In my opinion.
In the synthesis ending, you have to do all the online bullshit, or you had to with the original game, and it was like that was a bit much to ask of people. I feel like, I did it. I enjoyed the online multiplayer of Mass Effect 3, but it was kind of a shady tactic to use to. You basically had 2 choices if you didn't engage fully with the game, Yeah.
Before the extended cut, the synthesis ending just made little sense and just took away the specialness from the franchise, if you ask me. But again, getting on a tangent, my point is that I think if with a 4K trilogy, hopefully,
Yeah.
I can play Mass Effect 3 more,
Yeah.
and hopefully I will probably, I think with a bit of time, I think I would probably like that game more overall compared to Mass Effect 2.
Y'all are praying for a
So
4K.
I do think
I don't
Keith
think it's gonna happen.
and Mitch and Matt are all right, sort of. Yeah.
So I just don't think they're gonna release it out in 4K again. I don't think they're gonna do it.
Yeah.
I'm not
Even
sure I'd want
stupid.
to spend another 600 hours playing those games.
I would.
I
I'd
would.
totally do it.
If
Yeah.
anything, I would see them re-tackling the franchise and then just kind of almost starting from scratch.
Nah,
Right.
Not with the current BioWare they've got.
Yeah.
Right, Matt, we want an honourable mention. Let's get around these quickly because we've been doing this for 2 hours now.
All right. So honorable mentions: Portal 2 and Witness. Both of those were considerations for my number 4 slot. Liam, I highly encourage you to play Talos Principle. So both Portal 2 and Witness were going to slot into my Talos Principle.
I like your opinions.
Yeah, so those Fez, Dishonored, XCOM, Enemy Unknown, Bioshock Infinite, Titanfall 2. For obscure indie title reference, Into the Breach.
Yes.
Counter-Strike Global Offensive. I've put, I don't know, 80 or 90 hours into that game. And No Man's Sky for like most improved over the decade. So those are my honorable mentions.
Honourable mentions.
I've got a list of them. Honorable mentions: Super Mario Galaxy 2, Batman Arkham City, Resident Evil 7, Super Mario Odyssey, Bloodborne, Dishonored, Death Stranding, The Elder Scrolls Skyrim, Overwatch, the game I've probably put the most hours into all decade, Far Cry 3, Uncharted 3, Spider-Man, Dark Souls 3, Little Big Planet 2, God of War, Mass Effect 3, Bioshock Infinity, Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2, and Dead Space 2.
Right, that's a good list of games.
Oh,
Right, Evan,
and FTL, which Matt just reminded me about.
Yeah.
I love
Evan,
FTL.
some honourable mentions.
All right. God of War 2018, Uncharted 2, 3, 4, Dead Space 2, Bloodborne, Dishonored, Journey, The Witcher 3, including Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine DLC, Far Cry 3, Super Mario Odyssey, which almost made my list, and The Last of Us. I fought really, it's really hard to either put Super Meat Boy in there or Super Mario Odyssey or The Last of Us. Those are the two that really gave me trouble. But yeah, that's my list.
All right, Mitch.
All right,
Hit us with some honourable mentions.
Mine is going to be super short because I don't have very many honorable mentions, and most of you guys have picked some that I already would have put in my honorable mentions. So one that I did talk about earlier that would make my top 10 for sure, I would put Witcher 3 at 10, even though my experience with The Witcher 3 is not
I still feel
the
bad
best.
about that.
Hate
I still
that
feel
game,
bad
but
about
yeah.
that.
I think this so Liam, you talked about side missions and how missions turn from one thing to and flipped it on its head and turned to another. I think Witcher 3 does it brilliantly and it does it way better. So that's why it would make it over Grand Theft Auto 5, in my personal opinion.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So that's a very good comparison, actually.
Similar to you guys, it would be The Last of Us, the Uncharted series. Oh, I could go on, and Resident Evil 2 remake would definitely make my top 10 list as well.
Right, some
Go
honourable
ahead.
mentions for me. Things that people that have been mentioned. So God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn. Things that haven't been mentioned. Doom, the reboot of Doom.
Okay.
Yeah, true.
And something that I never thought I would get into playing, Apex Legends. Knowing my choices for top 5 games, I never thought that a battle royale hero shooter would actually interest me at all.
Right.
But I've been playing that game far too much.
Sorry, I missed one that no one's talked about. Bayonetta 2 would make my list. It's a great action game.
So yeah, this decade has convinced me that I can get slightly above average at a battle royale hero shooter. Right, Matt, what is your number one game of the decade, if we don't already know?
I wish that I had a drum roll sound effect right now. 11, 11, 11.
The heck is that?
The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim
Skyrim.
is my number one pick.
Okay. I was like,
so this came out on a Thursday. I actually took off work Friday so that I could go pick the game up midnight Thursday and play the game for the entire weekend. I've put probably, and this is a conservative estimate, at least 500 hours amongst all of the different versions that I've owned of Skyrim. Yeah, I love the Elder Scrolls series. Skyrim is definitely a sort of watered down and more streamlined game from the prior entries. Morrowind being my favorite, but if we're gonna knock it down to the decade, Elder Scrolls Skyrim, yeah.
the one thing I will give it credit for, I will never forget. So my first year of college was in 2011. I will never forget going to my dorm and seeing so I was in a wing with all guys, and probably every two rooms I'd walk into, they were playing Skyrim. Like, it was such impactful for us in our wing. Like, I just was constantly talked about, and they all went out together to go get it on midnight. And that's something I'll just never forget about that game in regards to just the hype, the culture around that game, just in general.
Yeah.
If you take it across how many different versions that have been released, you can tell why Jim Sterling calls it the cockroach of gaming.
It just never goes away.
It just never goes away. So if any game can be described as the unkillable cockroach, if any game were to survive a nuclear apocalypse, it would be Skyrim. Right, Liam, your number one game of the decade.
Surprising absolutely nobody who knows me, The Last of Us. That is my favourite game of all time, not just a decade. That game changed the way I thought about video games and what could be done with the medium. I think it's a perfect game from start to finish in terms of, I mean, of course, there's a few problems, like with Ellie getting in front of you and, you know, it's sort of breaking the immersion of the game. But if I'm being honest, like, I've seen other people having problems with the game. I noticed that Evan kept having ridiculous glitches when he was playing. I don't know why that keeps happening.
That was so cool.
I have no idea what was going on. That was my second time playing it. Like, that doesn't make or break the game for me at all. I thought it was funny more so than anything. Yeah,
exactly. But I'm pretty lucky with games. I rarely get any glitches. It's just like when I was recently playing Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, people are having like serious issues with that game, and I
you're
a lucky
guy. You try to live my life.
I'm exceedingly lucky.
Glitch.
Yeah. But The Last of Us is one of those things. Like, my immersion never got broken. I was just in it from start to finish. I thought the pacing was so perfect. The writing was so good. I mean, people say that it's quite cliched as a post-apocalyptic genre thing, but I disagree. Sure, it plays with a lot of the elements you expect from the genre, but it's different because it's so well written and so well thought out, and you know, it's of a quality that you don't see in most films or television shows. To the point where you can forgive it for relying on a few cliches that you expect from practically anything that releases of that genre.
It's more of a character study in just
exactly,
around it is just the set piece.
I think Joel is quite possibly one of the most selfish video game characters of all time.
I agree, and that was one of the reasons I love the game. The characters are so multi-dimensional, and the ending is absolutely horrifying. and brilliant.
Yeah, it is. It
I do
really
have to
is.
ask you one question though, Liam. Did you shoot the doctors?
No, I didn't. Absolutely not.
Don't you have to shoot one of them?
You do have to shoot one of them, but
You
You
do?
don't have to shoot the other two. Yeah.
you don't have to shoot
Oh, there's
the other.
3. That's right.
Yeah,
Yep,
he's got a scalpel. and
I
he
feel
won't
like a
let you pass
murderer.
unless you
I
shoot.
killed all 3 of them.
It's one of those things where it's just like because you're not the character, you're just controlling him, but you can't control what direction he goes in. When he's being a selfish cunt, when he's giving Ellie the, basically giving a shit that she doesn't deserve, you're like, you fucking arsehole, Joel. But it's well in character for him, and when the ending happens, it's like I'm like you terrible person, but I still understand where he's coming from.
I would have left her on the table.
And also, I would like to point out that the multiplayer for the game is fantastic as well. I love the multiplayer. So when this game is my favorite game of all time, the multiplayer is part of that reason. It's just so fun, and it understands why The Last of Us is good, and it applies what makes The Last of Us good to a multiplayer setting. And it makes it different from practically every other multiplayer game. I thought it'd be the most phoned-in, sort of hand-fisted thing ever, but it's very enjoyable.
I promised to give that game another go because I bounced off it hard.
Yeah.
Matt, do you have anything to say about this game? I know you fucking hate it.
Of course I do. Yeah, I'm holding my tongue because it's Liam's number 1, and I don't.
No, don't worry.
I don't want to
Destroy it if you
I don't want to
want.
shit on his number 1 pick, but
Doesn't matter. We all know that you're wrong. It's okay.
I was shitting on people's number 2 pick, so
right.
I'm pretty sure we get how this works. We're all fine.
Dude,
We're not trashing people just to. Yeah,
so
it's fine.
okay, the 2 things that I hate the most in movies, video games, books, comics, whatever, post-apocalyptic and zombies. So like it's the 2 things that I just can't fucking get into.
But they're not zombies. They're mushroom people. They're related to
Whatever.
Toad from
they're
Super Mario.
fungi.
That's one of the things I love about it as well, is how well designed the clickers are.
So the one thing,
No one realised
the
there
one
was a
thing,
crossover
the
with
one
Nintendo.
thing that I
I'm surprised
will,
you not know this.
the one thing that I will state though, okay, I get that they're spore people, okay, they're slightly more advanced than zombies, and the color palette is beyond the normal brown and grays, okay, and that's great, but
It's very nice of you, Matt.
I can't. Ellie just not having any AI and just running about, and I can't play the game.
it's okay, Berkough. I'm more on your boat, if anything. I think it's I guess for me, I find it a really good game, but I do not find it a great game.
I think it's
found it
a
annoying
good
as
story.
fuck.
It's not a very good game.
Oh, and actually, Mitch, if you're talking about influential, I mean, I just think you wouldn't have games like God of War,
You wouldn't have that kind of
Horizon.
game without Uncharted. I think Uncharted.
No, you wouldn't have that game without The Last of Us.
I think there will be no Last of Us without Uncharted. So I would actually disagree with you.
Well, yeah, but it's made by the same people, and The Last of Us is just an extension of what was
Yeah,
started.
that isn't made
with
by the
Uncharted.
same people. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Liam, I am on your boat 100%. This game probably
Yes.
should be on my top 5. I just finished it for the second
I
time.
noticed. Yeah.
Yeah, on survivor mode, which I think they should take out the whole listening mode in the second game. They probably won't.
Survival mode makes it a very different experience.
Completely different. It completely changed it. I thought I was going to hate it due to frustration, but if you play that game, like, if you're patient, like, it totally plays out well. It is probably the best game that should be a movie game ever made in terms of writing, if you want to put it that way.
But at the same time, that's one of the things about the game is it shows why games is an excellent medium for telling a story, because if you were to put The Last of Us into a film form, you'd be cutting out far too much. It shows why video games can tell stories in ways that
you'd be
movies
cutting out
can't.
probably at least 2 or 3 hours of throwing glass bottles or bricks to distract people.
Oh,
So,
never
what
throw
people
glass
like-
bottles.
Yeah, because there's not
It's
enough
always
bullets.
bricks. Bricks are most important.
Even when
The brick is
even
your
when you
friend.
hit a headshot, they're not fucking dead.
The best thing to do is don't use weapons in that game. You can get through that game completely stealthing it. You'll be fine. You don't need the weapons. It's fine.
All
You
right.
don't need to learn how to shoot.
Right.
All right, I think we'll
we've spent
debate
enough
about this
time.
forever. So, Evan, we're gonna move on. Evan, what is your number one?
Just get better at the game. You'll be fine.
You just telling someone to get good? How
Yeah.
dare you?
Yeah,
Hang him,
I
son.
know. It's terrible. Yeah. Just get good at the game. You'll be fine. You don't have to shoot almost a single shot in that game. Just stocked. At the end of that game, I had full ammo for every single fucking weapon because I didn't.
Moving on,
single
Evan. Moving on.
The best game of the decade for me is Breath of the Wild. Yeah.
Because you
say
love
what will
weapon
about
degradation.
Weapon degradation. It's fine. Just fucking break your stick and pick up another one. Like that's why shit's laying around everywhere. It forces you to experiment and try with other weapons. I will say I was pissed that once you finally get the Master Sword, that also breaks. I thought that was going to be
It
finally
regenerates though.
carried on the stick.
It has
at
to
the end of that game
recharge.
where-
It doesn't break. It has to
Yeah, it
recharge.
regenerates.
But
Yeah,
it's
but,
still
like,
stupid.
I'm fine with that. I went through all 120 shrines on the Wii U, and I got it for the Switch, and I went through all 120 on the Switch.
Wow.
It's the most I felt
got
like
Gold
I-
shit for
I did not go that far with that game. The Korok seat, that's where I draw the line with this game, and I'm fine with that. Like, there's no achievements
Did you play
or
on hard?
trophies in Switch games.
There's
so
no difficulty setting.
I freed myself from.
Unfortunately,
possible
Evan,
platinum
where this
trophy.
one makes your game of the decade, this one makes my top 10 list of worst games of the decade.
You know,
I
you like
disagree with
Shadow
that
of the Tomb
entirely.
Raider, so I'll never trust your opinion for as long as I fucking live.
I mean,
wouldn't
I
say it's
like it. It doesn't mean
worst.
it's a great game. It's a
I've
okay
never-
game.
So
I think
I've
it's just an
never
okay
felt-
game. I think it's just okay.
I've never felt the way that this game made me feel of going out in the world and just exploring. The exploration is just it's absolutely amazing. It made Ubisoft Towers. It flipped it on its head and made it in a completely different light. It's like, no, you don't get to the tower and it marks everything on your map. You get to a tower and you look through a telescope and you do it yourself, which makes way more games. It's here's the thing. This pick might be void and null when Breath of the Wild 2 comes out and they improve on all.
I think it
things
will
that
be.
they did it do
I don't-
well.
I don't
Right.
think so. I think
So
it's
there's
gonna be
also
Majora's
that
Mask of-
possibility. Yeah, but like, so I get that. Like, a lot of people don't like specific things about the game. Part 2 might improve on that, and I might take that game out and put Breath of the Wild 2 in that spot possibly. But I'm not one that plays a game for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours, but I put in at least 250 hours in this game.
Yeah.
That's the most I put into any game in the past decade, and I just couldn't stop playing it. So yeah.
Right. So we on the discovery that Evan is a Nintendo and Legend of Zelda apologist. Does anyone else have feelings about that game?
Okay.
I
No,
quite like it.
here's the thing. And I'll stop talking after this, and then you all can fire away, whether you think I'm irrelevant or not. I think the game is way, 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 way overhyped beyond belief. I think the game is it does not know what to do with itself. Unfortunately, the game has so much empty space. It's almost like they didn't know what they wanted to do. And yes, the exploration is nice for a Zelda game to be in an open world. But man, if you look at it and break it down, it's a mediocre open world game. Compare it to its competitors, there is so much more you can do in any other game. The weapon degradation is horrid. It always discourages you as a player to use good weapons because you don't want to lose the good weapons. So,
That's
and
true.
again,
Yeah,
the
so you don't
game,
want to get.
I
You
I
don't
do
want to
like
engage in any combat.
yeah. And then on top
But
of that, I
you're
think
fine. Like, you find weapons all the time. Like, just get over that idea of like good weapons. use it.
Get over
move
the
on,
idea of
pick up another
respawning
thing.
enemies. Get over the idea of
Yeah.
a really terrible stamina system. Get over the idea of
So
going
I
back to
I
Well, and then
followed
my
the
final
system.
final
Yeah,
one.
I'm
I just got
down
one
system.
final point, and then the final point is the game. Yes, I do enjoy games that don't explain everything for you, but I think we've had this conversation also, Evan. Is I never learned about cooking until my friend told me about it. It doesn't teach you that, and so I was
Dude, they
eating
tell
raw
you in the
It
beginning
materials.
of the game
yeah,
before you
very,
leave the
very
plateau
beginning of the
how to
game.
cook.
Yeah.
So you must have missed it. I mean, that is part of how these games work, where you could miss something that's really, really important.
And something that important in going into the world and all of a sudden having to eat raw materials to try to get past the frozen area is a chore.
Someone just raised their
Yeah.
hand when we stopped talking about this mediocre open world game.
Okay, I'm done talking. Someone else can talk.
First, I'll let you go first, Matt. Sorry.
I agree with Mitch on most every point. My main issue with Breath of the Wild, though, is story. It's
That too. I agree with you on that one.
It's lacking. It's lacking in absorbing me in this world through different lore and story elements. So there's that, and the weapon degradation system. I hated it in Oblivion. I hated it in Morrowind. I hated it in Kingdoms of Amalur. I just don't like it in Breath of the Wild. But I think that Breath of the Wild is probably one of the best open world games of this decade because it still challenges you on different levels. Like you can still get like Mitch, you didn't learn about the recipe because you didn't talk to the old man. If you talk to the old man at the right time, you find out about how to make this recipe to get up to that area that you need to be without having to carry a torch. The other way that you can do it is you can carry a torch and you're warm and then switch off of that to your weapon and then kill the boglins or whatever the hell they're called and then switch back to the torch. Or I think there's armor that you can get that makes you warm enough so you can get through that area on the plateau. Like the great thing about that is it doesn't tell you what to do. It does give you the freedom to explore and experiment. And there's a lot of games that do give me the story that I want, but don't give me the freedom that Breath of the Wild does. So
I give you that. I think it's lack of some kind of path to lead you to, because like you said, I missed the old man.
totally.
And so that's a key
I'm telling
concept.
you, like 95% of people did not miss that old man.
I didn't give a shit.
I don't give a shit about this conversation.
Yeah, my friend, to be honest,
I'm
missed
never
the
gonna
old
play
man
it.
the first time, and then he then came back to him. And he's like, "Oh, this old man's here. Maybe I should talk to him." But
You're all fools. Be done with
but then
it.
I think also to your
anything
to your
yet.
credit, Evan, though, I think because of the age I grew up in games, you grew up in a time where like the original something like Legend of Zelda, what's the remake that just came out? Link's Awakening, where exploration is crucial to that game, like similar to where I was playing the Mana series, where exploration, you have to figure things out for yourself. And I think for that credit, it brought that back. And I think people just bit on that too much and said, but it feels like the old Zelda. And it's like, that's not the point. In today's standard, it doesn't feel up.
I think exploration is key to every Zelda game. I don't think that's changed for years.
I think we should move on.
I do have some stuff I want to say. Like
I think
first,
we'll all turn into old men by the time we finish.
well, first, I think Nintendo owes Evan some shares for the amount of time he's put into getting Moon 100% complete in Breath of the Wild twice, which is a task that I could only imagine myself doing if I was stuck on a desert island with only that game to play.
Yeah, slightly sick, I know.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm surprised because I thought I was going to be one of the more negative people on this game, but I'm not. I think it's a great game, but I just don't think it's as great as everybody thinks it is. I mean, I saw it very much as the first step towards a much better game. Like Evan's right. I think the next Zelda game that comes out, I'm very excited for it because I think it's going to be excellent. But it's such a confusing game to me because like me and Evan always talk about Skyward Sword. I hate that game with a passion. I absolutely hate it, and Evan hates it too. So don't worry, he's got the correct opinion on that game.
Yeah, that game is trash.
Yeah, but one of the redeeming features about it is actually its story. It's very cheesy and sort of badly done, but it's a good story. It makes you care about the characters. It has some emotional weight to it. There's no story in Breath of the Wild. It could have been so easily put in there. I don't understand it. They create this brilliant world for you to exist in, which I do think is also far too empty, just like Mitch says. But they create this brilliant world and they redesign all of these characters so excellently. They even add a bunch of new characters that are pretty interesting and fascinating and don't go nearly deep enough. It's a problem I have with Nintendo as a company as a whole, is they just can't seem to grow up and try to tell something a little more interesting. Right, they've got this amazing IP in Zelda, and they don't use it to they don't use it to its full potential ever. And I don't understand why.
Two things. Evan has to say only nice things about Nintendo now because he went to their rehabilitation center after being mean about them on various different podcasts that he's done. So he was kidnapped and rehabilitated to only ever say nice things about Nintendo. And two, drawing the line, Mitch, what was your favourite game of the last decade?
I want to just take one thing back that I did say. I don't want to say it's the worst, top 10 worst. I think it would be top 10 most overrated games of the decade.
That's better.
I think that's what I meant more of. Besides that, I love the puzzles. Puzzles are awesome in that game. But anyways.
Oh, and no dungeons. Like, what is up? Like, there needs to be more dungeons, not all of these stupid
shrines. Matt, can we just mute these people now so we can move on?
All right, so my game of the decade is actually my favorite game of all time, which is God of War. If I could put this game in a nutshell, I've never experienced something like where I put in the words of, I call it a gaming with a purpose. Every single thing, every single moment, every single gameplay mechanic you do in that game has a purpose to something, to drive something more in that game. Something is always, the side missions are always pushing the themes of the narrative. The gameplay is not just nothing is just a throwaway in that game. Everything has a moment, has a purpose, and means something to the overall arching story of the plot of the game. And I think I never got bored for a second. I was more interested in something I never thought I'd be more interested in before. The way the camera was done in that game, you can't say that about another medium. Like, it's just, I mean, you could do it in an animated movie if you wanted to, but it just shows of what a simple idea of a no-cut camera can do in a game for you. And it just creates interesting moments and interesting angles. And sometimes it's not the camera being on the person that's talking, but the person that's listening to what the person is telling them and seeing the response on their faces has just as much of an impact as the person saying the words to them. And then I think the final thing is, this thing has so many epic moments where it's just, I can constantly think of some amazing moments in this game, whether that's the amazing set piece moment where the dragon literally with its mouth open, like nails its head down in between yourself. And it's just like, wow. And then of course the music with the theme of Kratos goes with it. And it just nails the moment. And I could never imagine, I'm just at awe of this game. And I'm very nervous for them to make another one because I don't know how you top that. But if someone could, Cory Barlog, I mean, I just have so much respect for the guy. He's a freaking genius. Like, an example he used in interviews he talked about was he wanted this game to be like the game where you would talk at the park and you would go like, hey, did you do this one thing? Because you just discovered this entire whole level when you go do this thing. And he wanted to create those kinds of moments, and he did. And it was to the point where I was so excited. I talked about this with my coworkers who have nothing interest in video games. They have no interest, but I'm like, I played this amazing game. It's so great. Like everything had to matter. And it just, words cannot describe how much this game was just so good. And this game would not be out if it wasn't for certain games, including something like The Last of Us or Uncharted. But I think what it has done is took that and threw all those other pieces away and said, this is how you do it, because this is it's a character piece, but I think the setting is even more interesting than doing a post-apocalyptic world. And the best part is it's a character that everyone hated or people had no interest in and thought that had no emotion. And yet they somehow took that story and made it a part of this new one, and it works. This game would not be as great as it was if it wasn't Kratos. Like, it just wouldn't have worked.
One thing they did brilliantly in that game is the evolution of the world that you're going through.
Yeah.
So even things like the discovery of the world serpent, what a moment.
Yeah, and then what a moment to have that change the environment around you, because he literally is not taking as much surface area of water. It's like the most, you wouldn't think about that, but it's like, that makes total sense.
Can I make a comment that's going to be sophomoric and juvenile?
You never played it, so I don't know if you have the cojones. Let's see what you got.
I miss the QuickTime sex scenes. So I want the QuickTime button press sex scenes.
That is not what I thought you were going to say.
I didn't think he was going to say that either.
No, I've never played it. It's obvious like how much everybody loves the new God of War. Eventually I will. I'll play it. I'll buy it, play it, but I just haven't yet. So
it's on PlayStation Hits now, so you can get it on the cheap.
Yeah, for like $20.
And hopefully you won't have the glitch that I did where one of the missions wouldn't complete, so I couldn't.
That's like my Witcher 3 experience. I'm so sorry, because that's an amazing game.
That's some rough stuff. No, Mitch, it's one of the best games of the decade for sure. I fought with that and Bloodborne and The Last of Us for my top 5, and I could switch out a game or two on my top 5 for God of War for sure. It's everything. That fighting system is amazing. It felt like immediately when I started playing, I'm like, oh, this is new. This is different. This feels different. And it's great. It's a great game.
And this was at a time where there was so much talk of the single player game is going away.
Yeah.
And this game just comes out and it's a single player experience and it just nails it like no other. And I think because we haven't gone through a lot of time since the game has came out, that I think this game will be as influential as some of these other games on my list. And I think Jedi Fallen Order is a single player experience only because of God of War. I think EA saw that.
I mean, it started development way before.
I think it did, but I think you can change your mind in regards to if you're going to do microtransactions, things like that. It
actually started development shortly after the project that Sony Santa Monica got cancelled, which meant which left them putting full people on deck for God of War, because you might not know this, but the project director of Jedi Fallen Order is the same guy that was working on the science fiction game at Santa Monica Studio. So it's in his DNA. He was the game director on God of War essentially.
Yeah. So
I would like to come back on you a little bit.
Okay.
Right. I think this game is excellent. It's a fantastic game. But I think people have the wrong opinion on this game being that difficult or that much of a departure from the previous entries in the series. I think it's a natural progression. I think the series was supposed to head this way. I think it was always going to.
I 100% agree with you on that. Yeah, that's where I think.
But the thing is that a lot of people go, I never expected them to turn Kratos into such a likable character. So he was in my opinion, he was a likable and interesting character in the previous games. He just screamed a lot and was angry for justified reasons.
I will say, playing God of War and then going back to playing 3 for the first time, he is a massive asshole. I mean, he kind of still is, I guess, but more so. I was like, Jesus Christ, this guy is terrible. But anyways.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that I just don't think it was that much of a unforeseen thing. Like people go, "Oh, it's a revelation." I just disagree with that. It was the natural course of things, and if they didn't go in that direction, the franchise would have died. And
I think you're mistake. I think you may be mistaken of people saying like of the direction more than the execution. I think the execution
is good, but I still think
phenomenal.
the execution has a few problems as well. I think some of the sections of the game are very monotonous. They go on for far too long, like that whole area of the Dark Elves. If it wasn't for the combat being so good, it would become very egregious, I think.
Right, so Liam's just one word of the day.
Thank you.
And
McWomble.
Before we get to yours, McWomble, I'll just counter slightly just with one little thing. Apparently, if you look at interviews with Cory Barlog, the Dark Elves sequence was actually supposed to be a lot longer.
Oh,
and so
God.
they did miss
Good decision.
they did miss a bunch of stuff that they wanted to play with that. So they tried to just break it down to the very basic aspect of just who do you, if did you make the right choice of choosing to side yourself with the light elves because you really are they really good because they're considered light? So that was the concept there. I think he was saying it was from Stargate. I think he said it was. They was playing with that trope of.
Thanks for that. That's interesting.
So
I do think that part of the game sticks out like a sore thumb a little bit.
Somebody likes Thor: The Dark World. Okay, McWomble.
McWomble, go ahead.
Oh,
Mass Effect 2.
Mass Effect 2?
Yay! So
3 and 2 are your
wow.
top 2.
Okay.
But 2's his favorite. Just like
Job done.
It's
Thanks very much. We could just call it now.
it's not surprising.
I'm a little surprised you put 2 of them on the list.
How could I not? If you're going to have 3, you've got to have 2.
If you've watched Beerumverate, yeah.
I mean, I was surprised. I was slightly surprised that he picked 3 over 2, and I didn't think he had the balls to put 2 at 1. And
when it came to putting my list together, 2 had to go on there first.
With the exception of the fucking last mission, everything about 2 is good. The character development is much better than in 3. 3 only benefits from the character development of 2.
That's true.
But yeah, the human hybrid
Reaper
collector.
thing. The human Reaper that they were building.
Yeah.
That didn't make sense, but I don't care. Sure. Best game of the decade.
I will admit, I did remember looking in Game Informer when I was a kid, playing the Mass Effect series, and I did play 2, and I looked in Game Informer, and they broke down like what would happen in each scenario for the suicide mission if you did the loyalty mission for this one, this is what will happen. If you didn't do the loyalty mission for this one, this is what would happen. And I did find that really, really interesting. And I think the reason why I do like 3 as my favorite is because I didn't want the same thing as 2. Like 2 is cool, like having that portion at the end of like things that you made choices on, made the decision for 2. But I did not want that for 3. I wanted them to do something different, and I loved that they gave you choice, which is something that I always thought the franchise really pushed was you always had choice.
I would
it's the use of special weapons.
Oh, I agree. Yeah,
you can carry around a mini nuke.
Right.
The way they do them in 3 is a little bit strange.
Yeah, I could see that.
Well, all right. So number 1's skill tree is like this. Number 3's skill tree is like this. 2 is like is in the middle, right?
In the between, yeah.
Yeah. 2, you've got the heat. The fuck do they call those? It's not ammo. It's like heat sinks or heat clips.
Yeah.
So a very short, funny story. I did play Mass Effect 1 when I got my Xbox 360 when I was a kid. I did not know what I was getting into when I played the first Mass Effect. Like I think I just bought it randomly. It was at the store. It was like $20. And so I picked it up and just went to play it. And then all of a sudden I realized once I got into, obviously once I get older, the internet was becoming a bigger thing. And that's when I learned that when they were coming out with Mass Effect 2, that it was like a big deal. And I was like, oh, I played a game that was like a big deal. Oh, interesting. Because I always will remember I did kill the Krogan in the first game. I did kill whatever his name is.
With the
Rex, I did kill him.
Yeah.
No, that was in my second playthrough. So yeah, no one can come back at me on this one. It's a fabulous game. It's
I'm
my
in full agreement.
It's my favourite, as much as Evan can sit there with his arms crossed, and just it's not the Legend of Zelda.
I don't doubt it's not your favorite. It's just I don't think it's the best game.
Can I say something about why it is the best game in a kind of weird way? Well,
you didn't pick it as the best game on your list, so why are you defending it?
It's the best Mass Effect game, though.
Oh, best Mass Effect.
Yeah. I mean, during Mass Effect 3, the whole galaxy is at war. Everything's fallen apart. In fact, all of these amazing things that, like the Citadel, all of these planets that you've come to love, these alien races are in turmoil. Everything's fallen apart. I mean, that's part of the reason it's so good, because of all the things it's taught you about all of this stuff in the second game and first game. But simply being able to exist in that world, like Mass Effect 2 is the best game for that. Like just hanging out in the slums of Omega, or like just hanging out on the Citadel. That stuff it just feels different in the third game. It's like if you want to exist purely in that sci-fi universe. So I enjoy the second game the most.
And Martin Sheen, absolutely brilliant.
Oh
yeah,
phenomenal. Yeah, I think that has more to say about the story direction than it does anything else, right?
Because on the third one, it's almost like you were very much on a clock.
Well,
yeah,
so number one too.
So it doesn't allow you to kind of have that exploration feel like it does in the second game, because you're investigating in the second game more than you're like, oh, you got to get everyone together. Oh my God, you got to rush this. You got to get through it.
Yeah, and number one as well.
For me I put 2 above 3, because in 3 you've got to do this because everything's under attack, and if you don't do it quickly enough, everyone might die, except for the fact that you can spend 60 hours flying around everywhere. So it kind of doesn't really make sense that much.
Yeah,
whereas in
exactly.
2 you can't launch the suicide mission until you've understood enough about what's happening.
But I think at the same time, people would be angry if there was like a population counter below and you just see the population get decimated and you're like, I don't want to be on a timer. I just want to, it's
Legend
hard.
of Zelda fans would have loved that.
All right, I'm sorry, guys. I have to go. Yakuza for life. Breath of the Wild's best game ever. Mass Effect's pretty good. The Last of Us is fucking great.
God of War.
Can't stop, won't stop. Keep on keeping on. Live fast, die young, and drive fast and take chances. See ya.
And go and eat tacos.
All
Yeah.
He's a man of the people.
I haven't planned for this. I have to readjust all of the.
Well, don't just call it on the fact that I've made the right choice that Mass Effect 2 is the greatest game of the decade. We'll just Evan couldn't take that, so he had to leave.
All right. On that note, gentlemen, we'll call it, and we're going out on a solid note, I think.
The Last of Us is amazing.
It's all right.
Well done, everybody.
Yeah, it was good. It's pretty good.
Nearly 3 hours. I'm going to have to go and make some deep, sincere apologies to my wife.